A whole new story, a whole new journey is here with the nodal shift into Aquarius in Leo. As always, all of the tea about this transit's gonna be in the first half of this video. This nodal shift is a big one because we have two outer planets really joining the mix of this nodal shift. So it's a lot more than just some eclipses and new signs. Like, this is a big deal, and I'm going to try to make this video as optimistic as possible while still being real about the significant changes that are about to go down in humanity, because I don't think it's helpful as an astrologer, a messenger of the cosmos, to just get on here and talk about like all of the bad things that could come and just spread fear in people. Like, I don't think that's helpful. Why? Just because I want to be right about a prediction. I don't really care about being right about a prediction as much as I care about helping people through what's happening. And I'm not saying all this to scare you. I think there's going to be a lot of really beautiful things that come from this transit. And honestly, the nodal shift will have a lot of help from the other outer planet. So I could see this going down in multiple different ways. And I'm going to discuss all of those different ways in this video. So I got you. As always, all of the tea about this transit going to be in the first half of this video. We're going to briefly go over what this can mean for your rising sign, but it is very hard to get that specific without seeing your actual birth chart. Why? Because even though these transits are happening in a certain house for you, and we can go over those houses when we get there, they're also going to be affecting multiple other areas of your chart that I don't know about because I don't have your personal birth chart in front of me. And so the best thing to do is watch the first half of this video because it will give you all the themes to look for. Everybody will be experiencing these themes somewhere in their lives, if not everywhere in their lives. So our little break that we have had over the last couple years of worrying about humanity's future is over. Yes, I know some of us have still been worried about humanity's future, and I get that. Not everybody has had a bit of a break, but I do think the energies have calmed down over the last several years since the COVID days on worrying about where we're going as a collective. We're coming back around to actually start thinking about how we are progressing as a society, as humans here on this earth. And so this is the time where we're going to decide where we're going. This is a time where we're going to see if we make the same mistakes as we've made in the past, in my opinion. I think that this transit is bringing up a lot from the last several years since COVID, and even longer than that. It cycles way back to 2008, 2009. It cycles way back to 2017, 2018. It cycles back to 1998. It cycles back through 1989 to 1990. So like, we're going to see remnants and pieces of stories that started then or that were at a midpoint then, either ending or coming back up now in some kind of way. And so I do think that this story is kind of continuing some of the social political climate, because that's what Aquarius does in general. Anytime we have big transits through Aquarius, we're going to see social politics and this urge to look out for humanity's future, and this collectivism really start to become a big deal and really start to become a big theme. First off, what the F are the nodes? The nodes are basically two opposite mathematical points in the sky that are based off of the orbit of the moon, and when the orbit of the moon intersects with the sun's path. The nodes in astrology show us where we are going to have eclipses for the next 18-month period. Now, the nodes are really, really connected to destiny, soul growth, karma, our past and our future. And so they show us our evolutionary journey for an 18-month period at a time. And they're really important when it comes to our own individual birth charts as well. Wherever we have the nodes can really explain a larger theme, a larger pattern, a larger story of our lives. And so when we have the nodes transiting into new signs, this is a huge deal because the eclipse story changes, the soul story changes, the themes, the patterns, the karma, the evolution in our lives starts to change. The desires that we have, the fate, all start to push us in a new direction in our lives. And so when we're really understanding the nodes, let's first start with the south node. The south node is really about releasing, decreasing, integration, spirituality, really getting deep and unraveling something in our lives, looking at the karmic patterns in our lives and really truly integrating things once and for all. Whereas the north node pushes us in a new direction, outside of our comfort zone, outside of what we're used to. It helps us develop new desires for growth, for evolution in our lives, that really pushes us towards becoming an understanding of ourselves and our lives and our patterns in a whole new way that we're normally not used to. And so the north node is really about what we have this deep craving for in life, what we yearn for, but feel like it's hard to reach or it's out of our comfort zone. Whereas the south node is what we have a yearning to keep or to hold on to or to attach to, but that's keeping us maybe in repeating patterns or cycles, something that we need to integrate or understand on a deeper level so that we can heal, let go of it, and move on from it. And so these are the nodes' purpose in our own personal lives and what they'll be teaching us in our collective and in humanity over the next 18-month cycle. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into where the nodes will be at this cycle and how to really understand this. So the last time that we had the nodes in these signs but reversed was around 2017. So we had the North Node in Leo, then the South Node in Aquarius. This time, this year in 2026, the nodes will be opposite of that. The North Node will be moving into Aquarius and the South Node will be in Leo. And then the last time that we had this exact nodal transit with the North Node in Aquarius and South Node in Leo was at the very end of 2007. All of 2008 until summer of 2009. And so if you want to think back to that time and what was going on in your life, it's probably not going to be the same exact situations that come up, okay? But there could be a pattern there. There could be something that happened around that time that comes back around, or a theme or a pattern that happened then that comes back around. It could be totally different. It could close out something from that time too. I've seen the nodes do this a lot as well. And so just pay attention. It doesn't have to be, don't like use it to freak yourself out with. Some of those years were not great years or times for me personally, but I'm still trying to be optimistic about this time. And I already see where some of these themes may be coming back up for me in my life here soon. So to truly understand this transit, we have to first take the signs and break them down to their most basic parts, their most basic traits, why they mean what they mean, all of that jazz, so we can really truly understand the axis of Leo and Aquarius in general. And so Leo is a fixed fire sign, and it is ruled by the sun, okay? And the sun is the brightest object in the sky, and basically everything in our solar system centers around the sun. Everything in our corner of the universe here is relying on the sun to maintain its orbit, to keep order in our solar system. And so the sun keeps the order. It also is what keeps us alive, gives us life. It also is what gives us light, the ability to see on a very basic level. Now, what do we get by this metaphorically when we break all that down? Well, we get a planet, the sun, ruling the sign of Leo and contributing its traits, the sun's traits, to the sign of Leo. So we get a sign that really deals with the consciousness, light, the living vitality of a person, of a soul. This massive focus on things need to be kept in order, or things need to center around something. And the sun ruling Leo, Leo is here to learn that things center around you and your life force. And not in an egotistical way, although that is the flip side of the coin. And one of the shadow sides of Leo is that Leo's here to really learn that, hey, everything is kind of centered around me. So for instance, just like we hear in the manifestation world, like your energy is everything. If you walk into a certain room with a certain energy, you can either be magnetic or repelling. You know, if you put things on a pedestal outside of yourself, you're neglecting your own sense of power. You're neglecting your own divine sovereignty within you. And so Leo is here to learn about that divine sovereignty within, how to lead itself, how to see itself as a creation of source, because sun in a lot of ancient religions and mythologies is looked at as kind of the god source, the consciousness. But even the sun is, obviously, now that we know that we're in a way bigger universe and way bigger solar system than we once knew, is also kind of just another star in our solar system. And so there's plenty more stars. And this very Leo, this right here is very Leo Aquarius as well, which again, we'll get into Aquarius in a minute. But Leo is here to learn about the self, about the divine force, the divine spirit within. And some Leos are just naturally kind of attuned to this, while others have a harder time or have more of a life that is uncovering the constant issues of identity, of self, of personal power, of leadership, of learning to lead from a righteous place, of learning to lead from an integral place, a moral place. And so this is so important for the sign of Leo, because in order to be able to lead other people, you have to be able to lead yourself. In order to be able to move in the world with your spirit, you have to understand that consciousness, that spirit within. And when we don't understand, when we are not connected to that, we get into the shadow side of Leo, which our ego rules. The mind starts ruling and taking over, and we become kind of obsessed with appearances and obsessed with looking confident and appearing a certain way, rather than actually being connected to something deeper within us and being aware and conscious of what is actually going on with us and who we actually are on a soul level. Now, something else that's very interesting about Leo is that Leo is a fixed sign. ruled by the sun. And so this is a concentrated level of light, consciousness, the sun's power here. And so Leo as a sign craves a consistent fixed identity. And I've known this from being a Leo rising my whole life, where it craves this solidity within itself. It craves this this fixed identity where we can be who we know ourselves to be, our true selves, or the light that we know is within us. But if we could just stick to that, then everything would be great. Everything would be perfect. Because when we are in our own individual sovereignty, when we are on our true thrones within from a clean, clear, divine place, we know that everything else is just a reaction to us. We know that that's when we are able to keep the order within our lives. But when we fall out of that throne and we get into ego and we get into thinking that we need to appear a certain way to get something else, and we start putting things outside of us on the pedestal, we lose ourselves. We lose that consistent source of connection within us. And so Leo being a fixed sign craves that consistent, fixed identity. But the sun goes through cycles of death and rebirth as well. And being a Leo or having any Leo placements in your chart, and for all of us, this is important because we're all about to experience a huge dose of Leo somewhere in our lives. The sun goes through these death and rebirth cycles too, and therefore we do too. Just like the seasons, just like the sun moving a zodiac sign every month or so. It's about accepting the shades of all these parts of ourselves, knowing that these are parts of us too. But Leo sometimes can struggle to find that consistent part of itself. It really seeks to find that consistent light within, that consistent power within, that solar power within, that can last through any season, that can last through any weather, because it is the sign that is all about the journey of itself. It's the sign of the journey of the self. So Leo can tend to try to hold on to a certain identity or a certain appearance that it once liked about itself, or that it once felt comfortable in that divine sovereignty in. But when the sun goes through a different season and that period is no more, Leo can still try to keep up the facade or the image that it is still connected to that other part of itself when really it's not. And this is the shadow side of Leo. This is kind of the life lesson of a lot of Leo placements. Any Leo placements are here to learn about the different expressions and shades of itself, whether they be creative or theatrical or artistic. Like, these are the different sides that can come out of that. This is why actors are so associated with the sign of Leo, because even though that may not be their authentic divine, spark within, it's like they are trying on different characters, different identities, different roles, different personalities to kind of see more about its own self, to become something that feels true to the self. Again, Leo is always looking for that connection back to source, that connection back to self. Leo's whole life is here to uncover what it means to be who they are as an individual, to shine their own individual light, to discover their own individual light, to discover what it means to be itself, to discover the self. That is like a Leo's whole journey. But as soon as it comes corrupt by trying to hold on to an image or thinking that it needs to become something to get something else, because it starts putting that something else on the pedestal rather than itself, it forgets that it is divine source and everything is reacting to it, and it starts pushing or forcing or trying to be something that it's not, to gain something out of it. That is when a Leo shadow can come into play. That is when we can see a Leo that seems selfish or arrogant, or has this, facade that they're very confident, but really they're not. They run when things get tough, or whatever the case may be. But a Leo in general, and the sign of Leo in general, really seeks consistency. It really seeks something stable within itself so that it can continue to shine, so that it can protect its own individual connection to the sun, connection to source within. So these are where the typical Leo traits come in from, of courage, of leadership, of loyalty, again. And these are the lighter sides that we see: creativity, authenticity. These are the lighter sides that we see when a Leo has went through those different cycles and overcome those different challenges of the self, and learn to kind of let the ego take a back seat and to really connect with that divine sovereignty within. And this is why, Leos, you know, oftentimes the sign of Leo will rule queens, kings, leaders, celebrities, like these big figures in our world, and Leo's connected to them because, and I mean, they can be both shadow or light depending on, you know, your opinion. But again, it's all like, how do I stay connected to that divine sovereignty within me and learn to lead myself or lead other people or influence other people or be in the spotlight and take on and keep something together, keep something in order because something in me is telling me this is my path or this is my purpose or I'm following this divine spark. Or if it's an ego, it'll be like because I want to look good or because I want the applause or I want the validation or I want the power or I want the say so. Again, it's still the same thing as knowing that everything is a reaction to you because you are source energy. And then on the flip side, wanting the power so that everything can also be a reaction to you, so that you can have all eyes on you, so that it's like, you know, in one way, it's like the very human egoic way of going about it. And on the other end, it's like the very divine way of going about it. But either way, these are the lessons that are really weaved within the sign of Leo. Now, when we stick the South Node there, you know, the South Node's moving in there. It's going to be in there by July 27th is when the nodes change. When we stick the South Node in there, now we have Jupiter in there as well. You know, both of these things are really interesting. Jupiter is going to amplify that morality and sticking to the code kind of vibe of Leo. It's really going to amplify that, like, are you doing things out of a place of generosity? Are you doing things out of a place of morality? Are you doing things out of a place of integrity and true belief? Or are you doing things in a way that does not feel in order with something bigger than yourself? So Jupiter there amplifies that even more because Jupiter deals with our meaning and our purpose and why we do things, our virtues, our morals, our beliefs, and our morality and all of that stuff. I think Jupiter there is, especially with the South Node, is going to make it very much about us being very wise about where we use and spend our energy, where we spend that precious solar power that we all have within us. And so it's so much about like where are we using that energy, where are we spending that energy, and, you know, also preserving that energy for ourselves. But also because the sun, and even the symbol of the sun in astrology, looks like an eye and deals with light, which helps us to be able to see, because if it was just pitch black all the time, if the sun wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to see anything. And so because the sun deals with our sight and the eye of consciousness, it's also very much about our attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. I mean, just think about it. Like if you focus on something, you can almost feel just energy. Like if you just take a second, you really like stare at something and you really put your focus on it, you can almost feel your presence going in that direction. You can almost feel energy flowing in that direction. Just like when you're out in the sun, you can feel the rays of the sun hitting you. And so wherever our attention is going to become a very big deal with this South Node Jupiter and Leo transit. We may have to be more wise and discerning about where we are putting our attention, where we're using our precious solar light and energy. The South Node can also be very healing though. Like I know a lot of people like to think of the South Node as this horrible thing and it's decreasing. And yes, that can be the case at times where it can decrease. But I have had so many South Node experiences, like South Node on my sun, for instance, like transiting my sun, where it was like the most healing time. It reconnected me back to who I really was. And I felt more myself than I'd ever felt in my life. And so I think the South Node can be very healing. It can reconnect us to that deeper truth within us, to that solar power within us, to that light within us. But it also does that through unraveling what is no longer not us. And that can come through the process of accepting hard truths to ourselves, accepting that, hey, I have been acting in a way that's just not in alignment with me, or I've been behaving in this way that's not in alignment with me, or I've been dressing in this weird way that's just no longer resonating with me, or I've been hanging out with these people that just aren't in alignment with who I am or who I want to become in my life. Like it can do that by stripping away the parts of yourself or the different personas or defense mechanisms that you have built up around your identity that you thought were you, but that really weren't you. And so the South Node can be healing and it can reconnect you to your more natural state, but it can do that through a process of kind of deconstructing what isn't in alignment with your true self, with your heart, with your soul. And so that can be a huge process that we all start going through with the South Node in Leo, with Jupiter there as well. So with Jupiter, like Jupiter wants to make things bigger. It wants to expand, teach, see that higher perspective. It wants to create meaning. And Leo is huge with meaning too. Like Leo wants to feel like there's a purpose or there's a greater sense of order in the world, right? Because it all comes back to like order a lot of the time. So it's like, there's a greater sense of order in the cosmos because I'm connected to this light conscious spirit within me, that I know that I have some greater purpose, or I know I have some ability to shine in the world, or to somehow create something legendary or leave my mark on the world. Jupiter is going to expand this massively, but K2, otherwise known as the South Node, wants to dissolve, detach. It wants to find a way to release certain things, to exit, to end certain things. And so with Leo kind of representing that ultimate seat of individual authority, sovereignty, and that like royalty of the self, I think the deeper meaning of all this is that Jupiter and the South Node together in Leo feel like this universal spiritual audit of the ego. So like Jupiter and Leo on the shadow side may want to say like, look how much I know, look at my wisdom, look at, you know, my creative brilliance. And the South Node there kind of strips away any satisfaction of, you know, applause or any kind of validation that may come from that. And so I think that this is really pointing to us no longer relying on external things to know who we are completely, right? Like there's a certain level that external things do help us see who we are, but when we rely completely on like other people, or we outsource our own individual sovereignty, our own individual power, and we start thinking, okay, you know, if I just get this goal, or if I just achieve this, or if I just have this many people applaud, like, you know, validating me or clapping for me, or if I just get this kind of thing, then I'll feel special, or then I'll feel heard, or then I'll feel seen. And this is a time where we're going to have to like see ourselves and stop relying on the external world to validate who we are. Okay. It's like, it's almost like the sun relying on the other planets to validate itself. The sun relying on us humans for it to come out. You know, it's like you have to find that internal wisdom, that internal light within yourself. And that is what the South Node Jupiter, you know, transit through Leo, I think is like really, really teaching us on a very deep soul level. So yes, I think that, you know, on a very basic level, this can connect a lot of people back to their childhoods, back to artistry, back to creativity and what's real there. But to do that, you have to get your ego out of the way. And I've literally already seen remnants of this, you guys. Like I had to do this already this year. Like I stopped creating on Instagram. So like I used to post consistently on Instagram a couple of years ago. And after kind of a dark night of the soul, I stopped posting on Instagram and I just focused on my YouTube channel. And I kind of inconsistently would post there like maybe once or twice a month here and there. And I finally, like, I've been wanting to come back, but I just had this like weird block. And I realized this year that the block was, I had this perception about how other people would see me if I come back. Like, oh, here we go again. Here she's back again after disappearing. You know, like I just had this like really negative view on how other people were probably going to see me. And it just always kind of cock blocked my creativity. And so this year I finally was like, okay, who the hell cares if people see you that way or not? Most people probably don't even notice, but like, you're gonna have to face the cringiness and the feeling of being a beginner again. Like you're gonna have to face that. Saturn and Aries, you're gonna have to like punch your ego in the face, put it aside. No, that's not the most spiritual way to talk about it, but I feel like it's very these times with all the Aries energy. But you're gonna have to get your ego out of the way, okay? If you want to do anything, because if you're always worried about keeping up some perception, which I wasn't even keeping up to begin with. It's like, oh, I didn't want people to see me as like, didn't want people to not see me as like this leader that I was in the past, but I was literally gone and barely posted for like a year and a half to 2 years. And so like I wasn't doing anything about it anyway, but I was like so cringed out to come back and like basically start all over, and knowing that like, oh, I had this like really peak era in the past and now I have to come back and be the beginner again. And it was just, I had to get over that. Like I had to get over myself and be like, okay, well, what's more important to me, how I look, or like getting my message out there and being creative and posting the content that I want to post? And I had to like kind of go through my values and realize that like posting content was more important to me than how I looked or keeping up some stupid self-image of myself that was all in my head anyway. Anyway, I think that this is a time where we can really connect to gifts that we have long forgotten, but it's going to require us getting our ego out of the way and not allowing it to run the show all the time. Like this, the next 18 months is going to be a lot of ego checks, you guys. Like it's going to be a lot of ego stuff, ego work, ego healing, all of that jazz. Now, I do think that we're going to see like some ways that this could play out, just focusing on the South Node in Leo with Jupiter. I think that we're going to see a lot of faith in leadership diminish even more than it already is. I think we're going to see just this general existential exhaustion that really comes from performative wisdom or performative people. You know, not to say that people can't still be theatrical or like have fun, but anything that seems fake or anyone that seems just overly cringe or like obsessed with themselves, like, or that is clearly putting on a show, I think it's going to be very clear. I think people are going to start becoming very, like, even more sick of celebrities and celebrity culture. And yeah, I think that a lot of people may find that your old ways of expressing, you know, leadership or achieving validation start to feel very empty and hollow and just dead inside. And so I think that what we're going to start seeing are a lot of people take that, you know, internal route of really finding themselves within before bringing themselves out to the world. I think that we're going to see more of someone that like has the wisdom to be a leader, but maybe lacks the desire to deal with the ego of ruling, you know, like something like that. Like, I think that we're going to start noticing where the ego gets in our way a lot more and where we attach to the ego, where we attach to like our different, because the South Node can really rule our attachments. So it's like where we attach to these old identities, these old ways of thinking about ourselves and seeing ourselves, these old paradigms of, you know, becoming obsessed with like Hollywood or celebrities or people that are entertaining or like whatever. And I think like some good analogies to describe this too is like, you know, as a leader as a leader actually becomes a leader. When someone goes from just like an ordinary person to a leader, I think, you know, you go through this process of becoming more aware of how you're perceived and how other people perceive you because of maybe the praise they give you or they tell you or, you know, whatever the case may be. And so you become more aware of how you're perceived. And then eventually you go through this kind of crisis where maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe you're going through a very human thing or a very like, you know, a thing that would make you feel or that you feel would make other people look at you differently. And then you go through that thing, but you're still trying to cling to this old image that people had of you, this old image that, you know, this old appearance that you want to keep up in some way, shape, or form. And you cling to that, but then it creates this dissonance because you're not actually feeling that. You're not actually embodied in that fully anymore. And Leo is so much about embodiment, like not in a physical way. Like, you know, Taurus is about embodiment in this more physical, like your actual physical vessel, your body. When I say embodiment with Leo, I mean like your energy, like your fire, your spirit, like this is who I am, you know, like it's like that pumped up, you know, spirit that just runs through you and can be like silly and playful and childlike at times, or it can be very confident and direct and have a lot of conviction, you know, a lot of belief in itself. With the South Node Leo transit, we're going to see a lot of people realize that they can no longer lead in the ways that they were. They can no longer hold on to these old images without being real or authentic about what they're going through or where they're at. They have to, you can't cling to some old image of yourself or keep trying to keep up this appearance that you're confident or you're a leader or everything's fine or you have it all together when you don't. It's going to be increasingly harder to do that. You're going to feel like you want to hide or escape if you start doing that because the South Node's there. So the more you attach to this, the more it's going to feel like a drain, right? And so I think this is like a good example, like maybe somebody that has been a performer their whole life and they, you know, built a reputation of being this certain type of person, this, you know, light, this performer, someone that's really good at something. And they have this certain image, and then that leads others to feeling that way about them too. But during this nodal shift, they may start feeling like, I don't feel like that person anymore. But if I'm honest about it, it could destroy everything I've built, all the order, all the order that I've built up until this point, this like image of myself that I've built up until this point. And it's going to make me look vulnerable, or it's going to make me look weak. Or, you know, a lot of the times that's how we view it. It's like, oh, I'm going to look weak, or I'm going to look like I'm not as confident as I appear, or I'm going to look like I'm fake. But really, then we try to fake being confident still, or fake that we're still in a good place when we're not. And so either way, it's like the more authentic that you can be, the more that you can lean into your heart rather than your ego, the better this transit's going to go for you. If, you know, for this Leo side of the transit, I think the South Node in Leo can also be like our natural state, you know, like I think that the South Node is that kind of release, that surrender, that exhale when you've been fighting something or trying to go for something for like so long, and it starts feeling like you're pushing against the grain. And maybe it doesn't mean that you need to give up on that goal or you need to give up on the thing completely, but you eventually get to a point where you're like, I cannot physically keep fighting this anymore. Like I have to like trust or release and surrender. And when you finally surrender, when you finally exhale to something beyond yourself rather than trying to figure it all out yourself, that's like the South Node in so many ways. I mean, even in, you know, Vedic astrology, the way that they look at the North Node and the South Node, you know, the South Node is more spiritual, whereas the North Node is more obsessive, and that human desire and obsession to get somewhere or, you know, build whatever that is in this life, whereas the South Node is less about material possession and material achievement and awards, but it can be about surrender and release and connecting with something, you know, greater than yourself. And so I think that's what we can feel with the South Node in Leo. So now we're going to move on to the North Node in Aquarius. If Leo is ruled by the sun, if Leo, like the sun is this big spotlight, I want you to think about it like one of those big stage lights, those big spotlights, you know, that creates like a circular light, right? And it's like the eye, you know, wherever you put your awareness, that spotlight is going to go. There are two signs that are kind of representing what's on the other side of that spotlight that we can't always see. Wherever that awareness, that spotlight, or your ego is focused on something, it creates this stream of light, but it also casts a shadow, because wherever there's light, there's a shadow. And there are two signs that can see that shadow, and that's Libra and Aquarius. Why Libra? Because the sun's in full in Libra. Why Aquarius? Because Aquarius is the opposite sign to Leo, and the sun is in detriment here. So I always say Aquarius is kind of like having night vision. There is, you know, this order and this sun, but Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, which rules the boundaries that are on the other side that we can't really see, you know, at least from Earth's perspective. And so it's like, what's beyond those boundaries that is in this order of the sun, you know? And so therefore, Aquarius as a sign often looks at what are we not seeing here, or what's getting missed, what's getting overlooked, what's, you know, what's not really making sense. Where does the sun's order leave certain things out, leave certain people out? Where does the sun's view of itself leave certain people out, leave certain things out? And so that's how you can kind of think of Aquarius, and where a lot of the traits and the stereotypes of Aquarius come from. Aquarius is also a fixed sign, but it's fixed air. It wants us to evolve, but by having a fixed system that kind of fits everyone, or that creates this kind of utopia in some way. Because Aquarius is about looking into the future rather than the order that we have right now. Where is this all going? How is it affecting our future? How is it affecting humanity? How is it affecting things? Again, what's outside the boundaries? How is it affecting us long term? Aquarius is so much about progression in the future. It's very future focused. It can be those that are inside of the boundary and inside of the sun's order, and it can be those that are on the outside, because Saturn is kind of that line between what's on the inside and what's on the outside, what's unknown, what is known. And so Aquarius can be, you know, the people that are anti-heroes, people that are kind of outside of the bounds, the misfits, the people that are exiled from normal society or looked at as different or weird, or that don't quite fit into the natural order of things. But it can also rule the majority of the people that are in the order, that are not misfits in some way. I think that Aquarius is, you know, kind of a visionary sign, because it's in the middle of winter when we are kind of at the darkest point, but light is starting to slowly increase as well. And so I think that it thinks ahead of regular social norms. So Aquarius, because it's ruled by Saturn, Aquarius, and it's an air sign, so it rules the mind. It's very connected to like, we can't stay on forever. We can't be light forever. We can't be great and, you know, high achieving forever. We also have to look at humanity, being human. Like, we're going to die eventually. It's ruled by Saturn. So it's like, what are on the other boundaries of death? You know, how do we explain what's even going on here intellectually, science? How do we deal with the societal systems that we have and how they affect other people? With Aquarius, there can be this like obsession with networks. And so it really craves this deep connection of belonging. Like, it really craves this deep connection to larger groups, communities, global systems. Aquarius really wants to belong, but it also very much wants to be a part of something bigger than itself. So because it's opposite of the sun, Aquarius as a sign is opposite of the sun sign of Leo. It's a bit less about itself and shining and, you know, all of that. And it's a bit more rational, logical, and it's also a bit more concerned with everyone. Or even if you're not an Aquarius that's like, you know, out dealing with like a bunch of people all the time, it could just be your family. It could just be, you know, whatever, where it's developed into your personality where you can be a bit more stoic or aloof. You know, there's not this like bright, lively, you know, dramatic, theatric spirit running through you like Leo. There's a bit more of a sense on logic and what makes sense and, you know, all of that with Aquarius. Because the sign of Aquarius is so intellectual, there's also this massive push that we see with Aquarius transits to excel more in technology and science and non-traditional fields, because those are the things that are kind of on the boundaries, Saturn, to make sense of, right? It's like, what's in the unknown and how do we make sense of it? How do we take what's on the other side of the boundaries and make it known and make it seen and put it in the natural order of things as well? So Aquarius is very concerned with the parts of Leo that affect other people, right? And so oftentimes somebody, you know, when they're so lively and full of themselves, whether they're an ego or not, when they're focused on themselves, they're not really focused on how they're coming across or the actions that they're taking and how they're affecting other people. Okay, like a great example of this is like thinking, I don't know, in some made-up situation, and there's tons of movies and shows that are really good for describing this axis, but like in a made-up situation, if you were stranded on an island with like 7 other people, okay, you are starving. It has been days since you guys have eaten. You feel like you are about to die and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. And you go and eat some of the food supply, but you don't count it. You don't ration it. So you end up eating like what would have been like another person's meal plus your own. And, you know, you're not aware that you did anything wrong. You maybe didn't purposely do anything wrong, but then the other people find out and they're like, what the hell? Like, why would you do that? And you explain like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I didn't measure it right, or I didn't realize. This is a very great, just on a very basic level, a very great way to explain the difference between these two. Aquarius is concerned with the parts of Leo that affect other people. So the parts of the king's rules, the king's actions that affect other people or that leave other people out or create these kind of cracks in the system where things fall through and that they're not really looked at or they're not really paid attention to. Because again, Aquarius is like night vision, and so it's like pointing out what the sun is not seeing about its order, about its system, about its kingdom, about its rules, about itself. You know, it really looks at where everybody else can be inconvenienced in some way by the individual or by an individual or by a select few individuals, by somebody else's actions, by someone else's choices. So Aquarius really deals with the collective and Leo really deals with the individual on a lot of levels. But Aquarius really points out like, hey, your choices or your obsession with yourself or your actions or your behaviors or you just always focusing on yourself and not really having any awareness of other people is affecting other people. It's not just all about you, you know? And so that'd be a very Aquarius thing. And we've seen this since the dawn of time, you know, this tale between light and dark and this tale between self and other, and what's good for the individual versus what's good for the collective. I mean, Aquarius can have a dark side too. So, you know, it's not always just like Aquarius is in the right here if someone's being selfish or whatever. It just depends on the situation, and that's subjective obviously too. But like Also, Aquarius can have a shadow side as well. Biggest tensions that the axis of Leo and Aquarius brings up are these questions of when do I need to just be myself and be my individual and do what I want to do versus when do I compromise? When do I sacrifice? When do I see that maybe I'm in the wrong here? When do I actually look at myself and see that, oh, wait, I've done something or I've affected other people in some way? And so these are the really interesting questions and the really interesting tensions that this brings up, because as Aquarius is so like what's outside of the boundaries, what's bigger than us, and Leo is like what's me, how do I continue to burn brightly and be myself and stay consistent in my own light and my own self. There's this tension between, okay, when do I speak up? When do I shine? When do I worry about my damn self versus when do I become a part of something bigger than myself, and all of the tensions and dichotomies and conflicts and questions that can come along with that. Whereas other people can help like make us question our identity for the positive or for the negative. We can self-reflect because we have signs like Aquarius, or else we'd just be in our own perception all the time, not really understanding what other people think about us. So there are times where self-reflection is a great thing and a very healing thing. There are times in life where we get humbled by life and we realize, oh, I've been going about this the wrong way, or oh, I got too in my ego, or oh, I've been too in fear, or too in unworthiness, or I've been, I overestimated what I was able to accomplish here. And those Saturnian lessons can be difficult, but very freeing at the same time, because it allows us to shed what is no longer true about us, or where we haven't been acting in alignment with our truth, or with our heart, or with our actual true potential and our true self. Whereas on the other end, there are times in life where we realize we have sacrificed way too much for other people. We are giving way too much. We are managing other people's perceptions of us way too much, and it's time to be responsible for our damn selves. It's time to do what we want to do, or what we know we need to do. It's time to stand out of the group dynamic rather than fit in to other people. And so these are the interesting questions and tensions and conflicts that this axis really, really brings to the forefront anytime that we have big transits in Leo and Aquarius. We've lived in this time for a little bit between this axis, as we've had different transits in this axis since 2020. But one of the bigger things, another really big theme of this that we see in the world, especially in social media, is that there's this like topic that like if you trigger people, that's their problem, right? Like if they're getting triggered emotionally, that's their stuff that they need to work through. And I kind of fall more on that side of the spectrum. But when does it actually go across the boundary? When does it reach a boundary of triggering people? If there's physical harm, etc., right? Like if you're actually doing something to somebody, like not just you being yourself and then they have a problem with it, like that's not what I'm saying. That's when it's like, okay, that's really not on you. But what is on you is your actual behavior towards other people, your actions towards other people, which is why we have a system, Aquarius, that says you can't just go break into someone's house because you want to steal their outfit, or you want to take something from them, or you can't just hurt other people because they pissed you off. This is the balance between Leo and Aquarius. Aquarius says, hey, we have a bigger system. There's a bigger system outside of just you and what you want. Whereas, again, if you're blasting music at 3 a.m. in an apartment building, like it's not just about you, it's about the other people in the building. So there are certain boundaries that one can reach in being itself. There are certain boundaries with that. If you just have the urge to hurt somebody, that there's a boundary with that. There's a rule with that. So basically, these are the different dichotomies here. And like, again, on the other end of that, it's like, where are we fitting into something too much? Maybe at work, we've been becoming something that we're not to fit into this group that hates us anyway, or that doesn't like us. And then we start feeling so fake, and we start feeling like we're losing ourselves. And to gain ourselves back, we have to start being ourselves and speaking up and setting boundaries and telling people how we really feel and being authentic to who we are. And that may cost us a job, or that may cost us friends, right? It's very high school. It's like, when do I go to school and wear the outfit I want to wear and dress up and feel really good, versus when I get there, people are looking at me weird and it's becoming a distraction. And now I'm getting yelled at by a teacher because it's out of the dress code. It doesn't fit into the bigger system here. And so these are the different interesting topics and themes that we're going to be seeing come up big time over the next 18 months. There are times when it's like so important for us to be true to ourselves and say screw what other people think and screw the group. And there are other times where it's really important for us to belong and be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean we have to lose ourselves in the process, or that self-erasure needs to happen here, or that we have to abandon who we really are. It's really about how can we be ourselves and be around the people that we belong with, or be a part of something that we feel like we belong to and are a part of. The sun just wants to be itself and shine really bright, whereas Saturn says, hold on, there's a boundary to that. There's a system that needs to be in place to protect us from the individual. And so these are the questions. When does the group need to accept the individual? And when does the individual need to accept the group? And so these bring up these bigger questions of identity and self, and how far our reach is, and how we affect other people in that, and how we're affecting ourselves, when to fit into something and when to stand out, when to find ourselves again and be ourselves versus when to belong. And so these are the bigger conflicts, tensions, and dichotomies that can really come up with this axis. And so I think that with the Aquarius North Node, we're going to start hearing a lot of phrases like for the greater good, or this is what we're doing for the greater good, or you have to do this for everybody or for humanity, or like whatever. I think there's going to be a lot of intense social questioning that we're all going through, and a lot of rapid change of our social systems. So like I said, Aquarius can be about the minority or it can be about the majority. It can rule both at the same time. And so at times it can be more about the minority, and then the minority becomes the majority. And then at other times it can be about the majority, but then the majority can become the minority, right? Like they can flip-flop. And so this is really big with Aquarius as well. And we really saw this during the COVID days. I think with North Node and Aquarius, we're also going to see a lot more coming out about quantum physics, especially with the South Node in Leo. I think that, and this may be a little bit on the shadow side that we'll talk about more, I think there'll be a lot of really incredible like breakthroughs and revelations on quantum physics, but I think that the shadow side of this is that science may really try to just explain anything divine away. And that's kind of the shadow side of Aquarius. Like it's all logical. There's nothing mysterious or special about it. Like we have it, we know it. It's very logical. It's very cut and dry. Obviously, we're going to see a lot coming up with the matrix, the collective consciousness, new social systems, social politics, another very, very big Aquarian theme. Now, the North Node will not be in Aquarius by itself. We are going to have the North Node in Aquarius with Pluto. And this is what makes this particular nodal transit way more intense than a normal North Node in Aquarius transit. We'll have Jupiter, an outer planet, with the South Node in Leo, and we'll have Pluto, an outer planet, with the North Node in Aquarius. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Like I said, I'm going to try to be optimistic, but also give you guys some real takes of this. Pluto is not a nice planet. Like I know everybody wants to just explain Pluto away with like transformation and metamorphosis, and yes, great, cool, it can be that, but that's not all it is, and that's not all the time how it shows up. Most of the time it shows up as something dark, gloomy, heavy, deathly, dangerous, extreme, tragic, crisis, something goth like, like just something very dark, like it literally is the farthest planet from what we can see from Earth here. It deals with the underworld. In mythology, it's Hades. And so we are dealing with a dark planet here, okay? And I just want to make that clear. Can Pluto bring beautiful things? Yes, it does have a purpose of showing us our power through walking through the underworld at times, through walking through dark situations, through dealing with deeper, darker, intense situations in life. So it does have a purpose. It's not just there to completely screw up your life. And I'm not saying this to scare you, so don't be scared. Don't allow that to dethrone you from your divine sovereignty here. Remember, Pluto here in Aquarius, there likely will be a lot released from the underworld. Secrets, potentially beings, creatures, something unknown, okay? Something mysterious. And Pluto deals with the unknown. It deals with what's hidden, okay? Saturn is the boundary. What's on the other side of the boundary is not always known. And Pluto is, the last planet on the other side of the boundary. And so it is like, we don't really know. It could be anything. It's like a void. There will likely be a lot released that we did not know. Not all of it may be true though. So just be aware of that. It could be released for control, for fear. Pluto deals with fear and control. Could be released for power purposes. But Pluto being in Aquarius overall creates this archetype of the system destroyer. I think we're going to potentially see a deconstruction of a lot of social systems, or a lot of social ideologies, or a lot of ways that we've went about things socially. We are going to be very much so. And I mean, the North Node's not going to get, I want to preface this by saying the North Node's not going to actually be getting near Pluto in Aquarius until next year in 2027. So they'll be in the same sign, but they'll be pretty far apart this year. So we may not notice all of these effects coming up this year, but into 2027 and 2028, for sure. I think that we are going to see a lot of systemic change. I mean, Pluto overall is change. It is destruction. It is, you know, taking down what is not true, revealing what is secretive, what is corrupt. And so if there are corruption, which we know by now there pretty much is, within our systems, our political systems, our any system that we have within the world, and not even just here within the US, but in other countries too, this is a revolutionary transit. When Pluto and the North Node get together, number one, it's revolutionary, but Pluto in Aquarius is also very revolutionary. North Node can obsess over the future, but Pluto really kind of wants destruction, death, something to end, something to disintegrate, something to break down, something to be revealed from the depths. And so I think together in Aquarius, they could be engineering kind of a ruthless or unconventional blueprint for networks, technologies, communities, you know, because Jupiter's, you know, on the other side of this with the South Node. So, and I think this is why having integrity and having a heart are going to be so freaking important with Jupiter and Leo on the South Node. I think that the universe is like, if this was just Pluto and Aquarius with the North Node without Jupiter and Leo, which we will have eventually at the end of this transit for a little bit, I think it would be a lot more cold. And I think that Leo having Jupiter and the South Node there with it is like, we have to have morality during this time, or else it can get too cold, too logical, too detached from the heart and too in the mind, too far pushing for progression, like sacrificing the few for the many kind of thing, you know? Because Pluto and Aquarius with the North Node can feel really clinical, you know, and potentially ruthless, like willing to burn down old structures entirely to force humanity into a new future. Now, that's kind of the more shadow side of this transit. I'm not saying that's 100% going to happen, okay? I'm just saying that you know, it's a potential possibility. Also, like I said, kind of putting God or the soul in a box, experimentation on God and the soul, and trying to turn it into some kind of experiment or science, you know, scientific, you know, theory or something like that. And so, you know, obviously Aquarius can also be very like tribal, and tribal mentalities can really, really become extreme. But and that can make it not always feel safe to be yourself. Like sometimes you can't be yourself because it's not safe, right? Like there's so many movies and shows about this. I always bring up my favorite movie series, the Divergent series. Like in that, you know, futuristic world, it's if you're a divergent, if you don't fit into the categories there, like it's not safe to just go and tell people that. You can't go and tell, like you can get shot, you can get killed, you can get exiled. Like it's not safe to just be yourself there, you know? Like, so that could also be the shadow side of this transit. I think that overall though, many people are going to start to feel like they don't really resonate with the same social groups that they used to anymore. They may not feel like there's anywhere socially for them in their current lives, and they may want to change groups or change, you know, their social lives, change friend groups, change places, all of that. And so I think that's going to be really huge too. I mean, this is kind of like the chosen one, Leo, versus the outcast, or the will, Leo, versus powerlessness in the world and with others, Pluto and Aquarius. I think that the other part of the shadow side of Aquarius is it can really struggle with emotional intimacy. Like Leo is that warmth, that sun. Aquarius can be cold. And so it can really struggle with that warmth, that intimacy. It can love humanity in theory, in the mind, but not in the heart. And I think that's where we really balance this out. I think that society may become overly fixated on disrupting systems, sometimes like appearing too intense or too radical. Like groups can appear too intense, too radical to others. We can have a lot of different radical movements, a lot of different, you know, new movements coming up, or old movements coming back up. There's something else to say about this. The ruler of Aquarius, Saturn, is in its fall in Aries. It's in a weak spot for it. And so being in Aries, Saturn in Aries is impatient and agitated. You know, it's like in this sign that wants to like be impulsive and move quickly, and Saturn's like, no, take your time. There are consequences. Like there's a way to do things. And so I think that the massive systemic shifts that the North Node in Aquarius can bring with Pluto and that they want to make there can feel a bit chaotic and hard to really anchor. So that could be a positive or a negative, just depending on how you look at it at the time. And with Saturn being weakened in Aries, it's like there may be a lot of push to make these systemic changes, but then Saturn in Aries is like, yeah, it's not going to hold because you were too impulsive about it, or you were too ruthless about it, or you did it too quickly. Pluto here demands that we face the shadow side of humanity, and that we all face the shadow side within ourselves in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of that shadow side, especially being in Aquarius, is going to be a lot about social media, technology, community. Pluto doesn't come without some kind of cost, you know? And so our systems that we have can start feeling cold and dehumanizing. I think that the power can start moving from just individuals to corporations, tech, AI, algorithms. Surveillance culture for the greater good can be used to like justify control. Detachment can be used to like avoid accountability or compassion. Hive mind thinking, group thinking can be kind of the danger of this North Node in Aquarius transit. I think the biggest danger of all with this is the danger of Aquarius without heart. And that's why we have the South Node in Leo stripping away whatever's in the way of us attaching to our heart so that we can feel pure in the Leo energy, so that we can deal with the Aquarius stuff from a place of heart and logic, you know, because if we're an ego and we're not attached to our heart, we're not connected to our heart in Leo, and we go out there in this Aquarian energy and we're an ego and then plus Aquarius, which can be, you know, very logical and cold at times on the shadow side, like especially, and I'm talking like on a collective level here, not just on like an individual level, it can be kind of logic over humanity. And so I think it's so important to be really, really aware of that. So going a bit deeper into Pluto, Pluto's kind of like a blind force that can destroy. It's very, very powerful. And Pluto, like I said, exposes what's hidden, what's in the shadows. And Pluto was found during the discovery of the atom, which, by the way, if you are still here, comment roll call down below. You are a freaking badass. Thank you so much. Let me know what you're liking about the video so far. So Pluto was found during the discovery of the atom, which I think is crazy. Pluto was discovered in February 1930, and this was a decade when quantum mechanics really, really solidified and scientists first successfully split the atom and discovered nuclear fission. This directly led to the creation of the element plutonium in 1940, unleashing kind of the atomic age. And so I think that with Pluto in the North Node in Aquarius, they are not just like progressing science. I think that they're actually triggering something irreversible in how humanity perceives reality, consciousness, and the cosmos. So Pluto's discovery really shattered this idea that the world was solid. It proved that everything is really just tightly bound by this invisible energy, invisible Pluto, right? Like unknown. Pluto and the North Node, like I said, are so consistent with like major revolutions, and Pluto and Aquarius as well. So with Aquarius ruling like networks, frequencies, waves, and like kind of this unseen matrix, I think Pluto and the North Node here are really going to bring quantum physics to the surface. And I think it will experience a massive paradigm shift. Like I said, I think that there's going to be a lot of like experimentation and decoding of like the sun, God, consciousness. I think that's where Jupiter in the South Node can really come in and tie into this Pluto and Aquarius transit. You know, Leo representing that like localized consciousness. Aquarius represents this kind of universal mind, this like bigger matrix, this bigger collective. And with Pluto there, it's kind of like unconscious. I do think the positive side of this, though, is that we may stop looking at God as like this person sitting on a throne, which is very like Leo, right? And we may realize that God is like within all of us finally. Like we may realize that God is the foundational intelligent quantum field itself, which is very Aquarian. There will be a lot of mysteries revealed over the next few years around the sun, around space, around the cosmos, around definitely aliens, which we're about to get to next. And also DNA, you know, like that's going to be really big too. So aliens and shit, let's get into it. I definitely think some kind of, you know, we've already been kind of seeing disclosure really play out, but like I really think that with Aquarius being the sign of the cosmic outsider ruled by Saturn, which is about boundaries of what we know and what we don't know. Pluto being the unknown. You know, this is like obviously going to be something about aliens. I think Pluto really brings what is hidden in the deep, dark, unknown places into the absolute light of day. And so I totally believe we're going to have some kind of alien activity, whether it's going to be real or not, like whether it's going to be used by the government to induce some kind of fear or something. I don't know yet. But I do know that with the North Node and Pluto and Aquarius, the idea that, you know, humans are the only intelligent life in the universe is definitely going to collapse. We may even find that certain things exist with us within vibrational frequencies, you know, like, or something like that, maybe alternate realities and stuff like that. And then obviously AI is going to get so much bigger. I mean, Aquarius really deals with technology, the mind, coding, like systems. So yeah, it's going to be really huge. And I talked a lot about that anyway in some of my other videos, but obviously we're going to see that there's a huge split between what's real, what's authentic, Leo versus what's AI, digital. Obviously that's going to be a really big, extreme, you know, compounding topic that we already see coming up now. So what the F does this freaking mean for everyone? So I've had even more downloads since filming this video that I really wanted to add in here because you guys, I feel like what I'm about to tell you is going to tie it all together even more than I probably did in this video, honestly. I'm really happy with how the video turned out, don't get me wrong, but I feel like this part I needed to add because it's really going to tie it all together really beautifully. And I know I just went a bit doom and gloom there in the last part of going over Aquarius and the North Node in Aquarius, focusing on the shadow side. So this is the more optimistic take on it. All right. So basically, when the light is behind you, you are in the shadow. And that is kind of Aquarius. It's almost like trying to film yourself or take a picture of yourself when the light is behind you and you look like just a shadow standing in the light. That's literally Aquarius. And with Pluto there, even more so than that. And that's a really, really great way you can kind of understand this. Leo is learning to be responsible for the light that you carry within, whereas Aquarius is learning to be responsible for something greater than itself. So another way you can think about this is like self-responsibility versus social responsibility. What is just in our orbit, in our little corner of the universe that we have to keep in order, with the sun keeping our solar system in order, versus the sun being just another star in the sky, and there being so many more suns out there in the whole entire universe, which is very Aquarian. It's like, it's not just you, it's not just your little corner of your universe. Leo wants to deeply matter in life. Like, that is what Leo wants more than anything. Whereas Aquarius wants to deeply belong. And so when we blend all of this together, I think that we really get a lot of similarities here between these two signs. They're actually very similar in so many ways. They're just playing out on different sides of the same coin. And so like the sun is about order, and the ego seeks control and order, whereas Aquarius seeks order and systems that affect other people. And so Leo can be so much about shining and being different, but Aquarius is also about being different and not fitting into a specific order that it feels is corrupt or not seeing everything. And so the beauty of Aquarius is actually allowing yourself to be weird, to be different, to not fit into a certain box or a ton of different boxes, yet allowing that part of you that's not fitting in, that version of yourself that is so authentically you, because both Aquarius and Leo deal with authenticity. It's like allowing you to be a walking example, allowing that difference within you to be contagious. And so Aquarius, being ruled by Saturn, is really a sign a lot about fate and the cosmos, something bigger than ourselves, again, outside of the boundaries of our own little corner of the universe here, our own little corner of our lives here. It's about what's outside of that, something bigger than ourselves that's pushing us to something new that may be scary and unknown and outside of the bounds. And then Leo is that force within you, the force within. But Aquarius seeks decentralization, right? Because if Leo is kind of centralization, everything is you and about you and within you, Aquarius seeks decentralization. It's like, it's not just about you, because it craves to connect and be a part of something bigger than itself. And so just like the sun being the only one of many in the universe, like I said, but it's still, the sun is still responsible for its corner of the universe, its solar system, and keeping things in order, keeping things in that order of the solar system where everything is depending on it. And so the sun has to keep itself in check, or else everything goes haywire. And so it's kind of like the source within, but also the sources outside of you. Sources within you and outside of you. The force is within you and it's outside of you. And so this is where these two sides meet. This is so much about remembering who you are while you're being guided to something for your future, something that feels unknown, something that feels bigger than yourself. We're all walking in to a time, an era, a paradigm in our lives right now that is so unknown. Like, we have never had the exact astrology that we have now in history. This is a rare freaking time, you guys. We are all walking off a cliff right now into an unknown and don't know what the hell is on the other side of it. This is totally new energy. So if it feels freaky, if it feels eerie, that is why. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad though. Every single transit comes with beautiful things. Think about every year in your life. It wasn't a perfect year. It wasn't all good. Everything wasn't all good all the time. You probably had good things happen. You probably had some crises happen. You probably had some challenges happen. It's the same with the nodes. So it's not like this is all bad and all good. So yes, I went over some of the shadow sides of this transit, but there's going to be really beautiful sides simultaneously happening at the same time. And so again, this is about remembering who you are while you're being guided into the unknown for something bigger, something for our future, something bigger than yourself. And it may feel like fate has other plans for you than your own plans and what you want right now during the next 18 months. And that's going to be the hard part. Like I've said in other videos about the Leo Aquarius axis recently, like there's going to be a lot of ego deaths. There's going to be a lot of shedding of old identities, old roles that we've played, old responsibilities that those roles came with, because we're going into a new responsibility, one that feels bigger than ourselves, one that feels more collaborative, more a part of something bigger. And so that's why this time is so important right now. It definitely can feel like fate has other plans for us than our own. But Leo is so much about how you choose to perceive your life. You have the divine sovereignty of perception and consciousness within you, of light within you, of sight within you. So it is all about how you choose to perceive your life. It's not just about awareness. You can be aware of everything, but it's about how you choose to perceive it. And that's the whole point of this video. So yes, going over the shadow side is like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound that great. But it's how you choose to perceive it. Some people watching this could love those things to happen. Other people could like really fear them, you know? It's all how you choose to be the sovereign one on your own true divine throne within to perceive what is happening, and how you keep the alignment and the order within yourself, but also allow yourself to be human. And that is what this nodal axis is teaching us on a very deep level. You may want to keep going towards your old order, your old ambitions, your old goals, but there may be a part of you that wants you to be free from that. And you may think you want something consciously, but you may not unconsciously. There may be a part of you that wants to escape and be free of all responsibility, but there's also maybe fate is pushing you to take on more responsibility during this nodal transit because it's about something bigger than yourself. You know, Leo also really rules the inner child, so we could have a lot of inner child work coming up over the next 18 months, a lot of old memories from when we were children. And I think that sometimes we think we know what's best for us, and other times something bigger guides us, something outside of our awareness, again, outside of our solar system, that the sun can't see outside of our solar system. And there's so many other suns out there in different solar systems. There's bajillions out there. And so it's like, sometimes we think we know what's best for us, but we can only see what we can see from our vantage point, from our point of view. And other times something bigger is guiding us exactly where we're supposed to be, even if it doesn't look like it's what we want or what our self-will wants or what we've been working towards at the time. And so sometimes we lack the ability to even see or dream up what else is out there. And sometimes something bigger than us is guiding us to that. And then once we get there, we're like, holy crap, I didn't know I needed this. I didn't know I wanted this, but I was guided here and it didn't seem like something I would have wanted. I didn't even know it was possible. It wasn't even in my peripheral. It wasn't even in my awareness. I never even thought of it. But once we get there, we're like, oh my God, I couldn't have done this myself. I couldn't have dreamt this up myself. So if the sun is keeping the order, Aquarius is so much about, hey, you're just a part of a bigger system. You're one system that is a small fraction of something so much bigger, that's outside of the sun's awareness, that's outside of the sun's light. And so that's a beautiful way to think about these two energies. And that is what this nodal axis is really about when you blend all these energies together. And so I wanted to share this with you because I really feel like these last notes that and downloads I've gotten about this are really, really probably the most important ones. And so I hope this helped you and left you with a more optimistic take and understanding on this. Now let's get back into it. Basically, I want you to think about this as like the sun versus Saturn. So these two signs are ruled by Sun and Saturn. And so it can really help lead to the understanding of how this is going to play out. The sun is warm, Saturn is cold, the sun is fiery, and Saturn is airy, being the ruler of Aquarius. Like obviously it's earthy and Capricorn, but And basically light versus what's dark that's coming to light is really what this is about. You know, fate versus free will, power versus dharma, order versus disorder, feeling special versus I'm just like everyone else. So this means that while the North Node and Pluto are trying to kind of maybe build radical new systems in Aquarius, so the universe really seems like it's pushing this kind of futuristic side of the North Node and Pluto, but to be guided by a humbled, soul-searching inner truth that we have with Jupiter in the South Node in Leo. It's almost like we can't really build the future that we want unless we have checked the ego, unless we've really let go of our personal need for credit or ego inflation in some way. I think a lot of people may eventually feel a lot of apathy toward external validation. Like, you know, again, this is going to really test, like, do we really need it? Do we, like, can we be ourselves without people telling us how great we are? You know, like even when people are not liking it, like, can we be ourselves? It's going to become exhausting trying to act like we have it all together, trying to appear like we have it all together. People are going to really need to find themselves and who they are when no one is watching or no one really cares or no one is like cheering them on constantly. So I think like while the ego is dying on one side, this obsessive hunger is kind of waking up on the other with Pluto and the North Node at Aquarius. I think a lot of people are going to have this urge to really cut out any toxic social circles, toxic systems, toxic social environments, get rid of outdated networks, outdated dreams. I think some people will kind of experience this like burn it all down mentality. Like some people may try to change their wardrobe 1,000 times to figure out who they are, throw all their old clothes away with, you know, the South Node in Leo. And then other people would be like, you know what, like I'm getting rid of this whole group of people. I don't feel like I belong here anymore. Like it's gonna be kind of a push and pull. And also with Saturn and Aries being the ruler of this North Node in Aquarius, it is so important to remember with this that our actions are not going to get us certain places as quickly as we want. Saturn and Aries is slowing shit down and it's making it more challenging and making us exude a lot more energy to have any kind of achievement, to get anywhere, to gain something in our lives right now. So this is going to be about slow, frustrating, and messy action. Like, it doesn't mean that it's not for you if it's not working. It just means that you're going to have to challenge yourself. It's really challenging us to overcome the urge to like throw a tantrum if things don't work out instantly, and to learn how to practice patience and to learn how to be discerning about the actions that we take. A lot of people are going to want to jump into the future, wanting to jump into these future ideals and plans. But I think that if we have a lack of emotional discipline, if we have a lack of, you know, ego discipline, if we have anger issues that are unhealed, I think that it's going to really force us to ask ourselves, like, how can you claim to want a better life, a better world for everyone, but if you cannot master your own internal chaos and triggers, because that's so much what this nodal axis is about. I think we're moving away from this kind of like isolated attention-seeking icon phase and kind of being pushed into this uncomfortable revolutionary era where we have to collaborate or we have to be involved or we have to like actually start figuring out where we're going in our lives and our personal lives as a collective, in our cities, in our nations. Like, but to get there, it's like we have to mature. With Saturn ruling Aquarius and being in Aries, it's like we have to mature, we have to grow up, we also have to slow down. Okay, so how to work with this transit. We are at the last section now, baby, so let's go. So basically, the human and the higher self, the ego has to accept the human over appearances. It has to accept being a beginner at times, not knowing everything, not always looking the best, not always appearing perfect or confident or like a leader or whatever. And so how you're being perceived is going to be extremely less important right now. To a certain extent, it is important because like I said earlier, if you just got stranded on an island and you're not really paying attention, you take somebody else's food, that's going to create issues. You can create issues for other people. But if you're not creating issues for other people other than maybe just triggering their own personal internal stuff, that's different, right? And so I think that it's like how you're being perceived in terms of if everyone loves you or likes you is less important, but how you're being perceived as somebody that's in integrity, somebody that is, you know, part of something bigger than yourself, and that is like following some kind of moral code is more important, and not to just do it to fake it, right? Like this is about the real deal. This is about like being true to yourself, being in integrity. So last time that the North Node, like last time that the nodes were in Leo and Aquarius, that I was actually into astrology at the time was in 2017. They were reversed though. The North Node was in Leo and the South Node was in Aquarius. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons around that time that I think could be helpful for you to understand this axis a little bit more. That was actually when I first started doing YouTube videos, but I had a different channel when I first started, and I was doing a lot of like beauty related things at first. And so, you know, I was doing it for several months, and I also would see all these other like, you know, beauty channels and stuff, and they were doing so well. And eventually I started kind of comparing myself, and I was like, why am I not doing well? Why are they doing so well? And I realized it was because I wasn't being myself. Like I was trying to show up and be like prim and proper and how I saw everybody else doing it. And I was also really trying to hide my past of being an addict. And, you know, I hadn't been clean for that long. So I was like embarrassed about that. I had just gotten sober like the year before in 2016. So I just was like, I saw these other people doing, you know, beauty related stuff, and they like seemed like they had their shit together. They appeared, again, that Leo energy, like they like had it all together, like they had things in order. And I wanted to appear that way because I thought that was the way to do it. And eventually it started, like I started really losing myself. I started really feeling like I don't know who I am anymore. I remember by the time October hit that year in 2017, I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. What is going on? Like I just feel so lost. And then I just had this revelation, like, Tani, you have been trying to find what makes you different than all these other people and how to stand out amongst them. What if the very thing that makes you different and makes you stand out is the very thing that you keep trying to hide? And I was like, oh my God, like I need to tell everyone on my channel, like the few hundred people I had at the time, that I was an addict, you know, and I did. And it like led to me being so much more myself. And then I started experimenting with all kinds of other videos and like just allowing myself to be cringe and funny and like theatrical and be human at the same time. Like I used to call everybody over there, like you say, like we're a hot mess over here, and call my audience hot messes. And I just started embracing being messy instead of looking like I had it all together. And I think that's a really beautiful, like, you know, way to describe Leo and Aquarius. Like it's just like a story I thought of when I was like, you know, writing down my notes for this. I was like, wow, that was so Leo and Aquarius at the time. I also think how we deal with this is that a lot of the times, like if you want to learn how to be or stay in alignment, like I said, Leo wants that consistent alignment with itself. And so I think that to stay in alignment, the key isn't to constantly be in that high vibe place or to meditate every day or to constantly add more things into your life. It's actually to get really good at being human. And this is where Aquarius balances Leo out. Because we came here to be human. And the better that we can get at this human game, the more adaptable we can become, the more we test that inner sovereignty to be able to deal with all kinds of human situations that can feel messy and chaotic and out of order and hard, right? But it really helps us because everything has an equal and opposite side. And if you really want to learn how to stay in consistent alignment, stay, you know, true to yourself, you have to learn how to be good at being human, because we came here to be human after all. You're not going to escape that. And so I think that this is going to be really important advice for this time as well. I think that this means we're going to be finding our role in the world. If we've been following a path that is no longer true for us, that's going to become very, very clear at this time. If we've been acting like someone we're not, that's going to become very clear at this time. If we have the wrong people in our lives, that's going to become very clear at this time. And it's going to be so much easier to try to not like cling, right? Like when you start noticing these things, even if they're hard truths at first, the more that you cling, the harder this is going to be, right? So it's like, okay, how can I end this? How can I let this go? How can I shed this old identity? Like, let's rock, you know, like the more optimistic that you can be about this, because we need that with Jupiter and Leo on the South Node. Like, we've got to be optimistic. And that's going to be another thing too. I think like with Aquarius, there's going to be this like realism versus optimism kind of thing going on in the world, which I think you can have some of both, honestly. With the South Node and Jupiter and Leo, it's going to be more about remembering who you are and less about shine so everybody can see me and I can be worshipped and liked and loved. You know, like it's going to be a bit more of like remembering who we are on a deep level. I think the mandate of this transit is really going to be about becoming an active, conscious architect of the future rather than just a passive watcher of it or a passive consumer of it even more? What are we giving our light and our energy to? Like I said earlier, are we just consuming all this stuff but not actually like being true to ourselves or living or doing anything, right? I think another huge question to ask yourself during this time to follow is like, do you practice what you preach and believe? Are you truly embodied? Do you have what it takes to truly be a leader in your life? Can you lead your own self right now? If not, then you have to start there. Another important thing to remember is that you can be seen, but you can't control how other people see you a lot of the time. So obviously, if you get feedback that like you're being an asshole all the time or something and you didn't realize you were and you think it might be true, then yeah, maybe do some self-auditing, some egoic auditing there. But other than that, like there's a lot of instances where you cannot control how other people are going to see you. Even if you were the nicest person in the world and someone's like, I don't really trust you, I feel like you're up to something, you can't control that, you know? Like it only really is true if you think it's true. Another way I think is really great to explain this is that, you know, those like movies and shows where there's like a main character who's different, but they get really like picked on and outcasted in some way because they're different, and they start like trying to hide it and repress their differences. And then you're like, the whole time you're watching, you're like, oh my God, just embrace it. Like, that's how you get into your power. Like, just embrace your differences. Like, these are gifts. Like, why are you hiding it? You know, like, as a viewer, you can clearly tell, like, if you just embrace this, like, you would pop off, okay? And so you're like yelling at the screen and like, you're like, you know, just let them embrace it. Like their differences are their superpower. It's what makes them the main character too, you know? But they have these internal battles with themselves and with other people usually in these types of movies and shows. And eventually, though, it leads to them embracing it. It leads to them embracing their power, embracing their differences. And then that really helps them rock their full potential. That really helps them, you know, see their full potential, feel their full power. And it's so satisfying in that moment when that happens. That is how I want you to think of this nodal axis. Like, we are going to realize, a lot of us, like, what makes us different, and we're going to want to hide it, or we're going to want to repress it, or we're going to want to, like, you know, act like it's not there, avoid it, ignore it. But these are our superpowers, and it's so important to remember that during this time. So also with Uranus in the mix, trining the North Node in Aquarius, sextiling, trining Pluto in Aquarius, sextiling Jupiter. This is going to be really important for us to be okay with changing our minds. It's really revolutionizing our mental paradigm and the way that we deal with, you know, our mind, communication, technology. And so this is a time to be very innovative, to be very curious, to consider all ideas, you know, learn and adapt and gain new skills and see through multiple perspectives rather than just one. So, you know, find the good and the bad, you know, during these times, and potentially sometimes the bad and the good, you know. Obviously, it's not something we want to like harp on, but I think it's just important to see both sides of things at this time, and to be very curious and open-minded. And I really feel like that's what Uranus is helping us with. And a lot of these outer planet transits are really helping this nodal shift as well. So it, you know, I think that also is going to play a part. I think this is going to be a lot about finding your center while the world speeds up. Can you find your center while the world evolves? Can you stay connected to your heart and integrity when faced with external forces, when faced with things that are unknown, or things that you're scared of, or things that you may not agree with? Your shine must serve something larger than yourself, and it must come from the divine code that you follow within you and that you know is right in your heart. So that is what I have to say about the nodal shift into Leo and Aquarius. Let me know down below what you guys thought of this video. If it was something that, if you stayed till here, number one, comment down below, sexy alien. I appreciate you. And yeah, let me know what you thought about this video and what you got from it. I'd really love to hear your feedback. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we're gonna get into what this means for your rising sign. Aquarius Rising, starting with you. You guys are the star of the show for the next 18 months. This is such a big, pivotal, karmic, powerful, freaking time for you guys. And I'm not even playing. I'm not even trying to be dramatic here. This is such a huge, huge shift. And again, go back and watch the first whole half of the video if you want to understand this on such a deep level, because it is affecting pretty much all areas of your life, and that's why you definitely need to watch the first half of the video. But in this specific horoscope, we're mainly just going to focus on your 1st and 7th house, even though it's going to affect way more than that. And that's why these horoscopes are not everything. And so The North Node being in your first house as an Aquarius rising means that a lot of your fated, destined, and karmic lessons are going to push you to understand yourself on such a deep level, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels like you have to be the loner or the only one going in the way that you're going. This is such a pivotal time of self-transformation, self-actualization, and a massive karmic journey happening here and repeating potentially from the past. Go look at the other time periods where these nodes happened. I talked about that in the beginning as well. But this is an unraveling of karmic lessons to do with your relationships with other people, how other people see you, the types of people you vibe with, the types of people you fit into. Like, this is such a huge, huge karmic story starting here about you and all of the different multidimensional facets of who you are as a person, your past self, your present self, your future self, and who you really are in this world, the role that you play not only in the world, but in your own personal life. Like, who are you? Who are you becoming? And so the nodal shift, really, when the North Node moves through the first, it's such a push towards being your true, authentic self, human in all, imperfections and all. And so this is a journey that's going to push you towards you tremendously. And at the same time, you're going to have to release certain attachments to do with relationships, to do with other people, to do with partnerships potentially. Now, that doesn't mean every Aquarius rising is going to go through a breakup if you're in a committed relationship, but there may be a restructuring of the way that you see your relationship, the way you perceive your relationship, how you go about your relationships, how you show up in relationships. There may be shifts with other people in your life as well that are outside of you. And so this is the karmic and fated story that's starting here. It's really pushing you to really learn how to be your true self, your true authentic self with other people, and how to find yourself on your own as well. Some of you may be pushed to stand on your own, to, be more secluded, to be more introverted, to really find yourself. And then others of you may be pushed out of your comfort zone to really embrace yourself in the public eye, embrace yourself around other people and not hide yourself away. And so there's different facets of this story. And again, this is happening over 18 months. So a lot of you guys could experience both sides of this spectrum at different points over the next 18 months. But either way, you are learning so much about yourself in the next year and a half. You are really going to learn how to step into your true authentic self, how to really find yourself and your place in your life right now, but also how to have some kind of deep, personal, powerful change and transformation with yourself. There may be a lot of events that happen over the next year and a half that truly change you on a fundamental level, like down to your soul. Like, they change you as a person. And it may be a lot about endings or getting rid of old parts of you, old versions of you that just no longer fit, old labels that you've identified with in the past that are just no longer able to come with you or that you no longer fit into. I think a lot of Aquarius risings are going to experience this like rising up out of boxes that you've been limited to for so long, whether you've put them on yourself because of certain ideologies you've had about who you are, or whether other people or society has conditioned you to believe certain things about yourself. Either way, you are going to learn how to stand out as your own unique multidimensional self in a very, very powerful way. And this may mean changing a lot of the fundamental ideologies, thoughts, and beliefs that you've had about yourself for a long time, and how that's also come from your beliefs, ideologies, and situations regarding other people and relationships in your life. And so you're going to really want to feel like you matter in your relationships, and your relationships are going to become such an important part of your life because you're going to have to get to the heart of what you truly admire, want, and what you truly prioritize in your relationships. You're going to have to see where maybe you have some characters in your life where it's like everything revolves around them and you lose yourself in that relationship. And so it may be time to cut some of those cords or distance yourself, in a healthy way so that you can find yourself outside of your relationships. You may have other relationships where you feel like you shrink, or you feel like you only know yourself because of those relationships. And so this story may be about you finding yourself outside of them as well in some way. And so either way, there is such an important and crucial story happening here where you are learning to evolve and into maybe a destiny that feels a bit uncomfortable, or that feels like, oh, I'd rather have these people around me because I know who I am with these people, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like this nodal axis is like, well, who are you without that? Who are you alone in this world? What are you doing that's bigger? What are you a part of that's bigger than just yourself, that really matters to you? Where do you belong to yourself? This is so much about you learning to belong with yourself and to really embrace this self-transformation process, even though it may be difficult at times, even though there may be a lot of shedding involved, even though it may come with you releasing some attachments to old ideas about certain people. Maybe for some of you, especially with Jupiter moving through your 7th house, could also be about you releasing old ideologies and beliefs about relationships that no longer serve you. So for instance, maybe you've already been like a lone wolf in the world. Maybe you've already been walking as like an outcast for a while, or not really feeling like you fit in anywhere. And Jupiter in the South Node in your 7th could actually show you where your home, where your heart is, like true relationships or mentorships or teachers that can come into your life at this time and really help you feel like, oh my gosh, this feels so aligned in my heart and soul. And it shows you a new side of yourself. So there can be a lot of different facets and levels to this nodal story that is playing out for you as an Aquarius rising. Some of you guys might experience a certain level of all of these different things at different times over the last year and a half. Maybe for some of you, it starts as like, you know what, I need to really embrace who I am and do me. And then others of you, and then later on, it could be like, okay, actually, I really need to find like my tribe. I really need to find these like really aligned relationships. And then I learn about myself even more through that. And then maybe at the end, there's another process of like, okay, maybe I've adapted too many beliefs from other people and I need to kind of integrate all of it between myself and others so that I can find this middle ground, you know? So it could go different spectrums for different ones of you and start in different ways. You could be in different points of this journey over the next year and a half. But either way, this is such a crucial time for understanding yourself and understanding others, how you show up in those different dynamics, and how to really move forward in a life that feels more authentic to you, that feels like you're in the role that feels the most aligned for you. It's such an evolutionary time for your identity, for your body, your vitality, yourself, your appearance. All of those things could be going through massive change over the next 18-month period. Okay. And I think that a lot of you guys may be like really changing your environment or changing the types of people, types of personalities that you click with, that you go around, the types of groups that you're involved with, and the types of friend groups that you're involved with. All of that is going to change dramatically as well. So let me know down below, Aquarius Risings, how this is feeling for you so far. What have you noticed since the nodes moved into your sign right around the end of July? Let me know down below. If you missed the first half, that's basically your horoscope as well. So go back and watch that shit. And I will see you guys in the next one. Comment down below, sexy Aquarius Rising. Alrighty, my fellow Leo risings in the his house, what is up? And welcome to the South Node in our mother effing sign. Luckily, we have the benefic planet of Jupiter there. It's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out. And also, we have the North Node with Pluto in our 7th house. If you missed the first half of this video, it's basically your whole life story and horoscope, so definitely make sure to go back and check that out. But over the next 18 months, we're experiencing this huge karmic and fated destined story shift within our lives. And this is such a pivotal, huge moment for us as Leo risings. Like, this is really, really affecting us. We are part of all of this change that's happening here. So it is so, so crucial that the next 18 months you are aware that there's a huge karmic and fated story that is unfolding. And it's going to have a lot to do with pushing us out of our comfort zones. It's going to have a lot to do with us sometimes admitting that we don't have all the answers, that we don't know, or that what we want may not entirely be exactly what we actually need in some way. And so the universe is really pushing us in some kind of fated, destined direction here. And we may not always understand or like that direction at first. It doesn't mean that we're not going to like it once we get there, or that way it won't grow on us to some extent, because I truly believe that it will. But I think that a lot of our old ideas about who we are, where we've been going, our lives, our identities, ourselves are really unraveling over the next year and a half. It's really like this nodal axis is really pushing us to get very freaking honest with ourselves, to become very freaking aware of who we are. We are unraveling old patterns and old egoic defenses around our identity and around where we no longer have been truly aligned in our heart and soul, and how we can experience life and participate with some kind of higher destiny, higher plan, so that we can feel back on track in our lives, or so that we can feel like we are evolving and really growing into our full potential. And that is really, honestly, what this story all comes down to. This North Node in Aquarius is really pushing us outside of our comfort zone and showing us that sometimes our own ideas, plans, and even ideas about ourselves aren't always accurate or aren't always what's best for us. And as a Leo rising ruled by the sun, who is usually used to keeping the order in everything and having some kind of creative control over its life and life direction, this can feel a bit difficult. This can feel challenging. It can feel like, why am I being pushed in this way? I wanted to go in this way. You know, like it's like, this is where I've always had the order. This is what I've always been wanting to create. Why am I being pushed in this whole other direction right now? Why am I being pushed outside of myself? Why am I being, you know, pushed in this different fated area? But I think the more that we can truly trust this destined plan for us and not always rely on our own things that we can see with our own eyes, our own point of view, basically, I think that that's where we really find the sweet spot of this, because the more that we try to force things in our lives because we're used to creating our lives and ourselves however the hell we want, the more that we think that we know the right way, the more that we're going to be shown something differently. And I think that the South Node in Leo in our first house is really helping us get back to something that is more true within us than wherever we've been. Okay, so this is going to be very nostalgic. Like the rising sign can have a lot to do with early childhood. So there may be a lot of old memories, old little synchronicities, old things coming up from the past that are very nostalgic, that really introduce you to that inner child. There's going to be a lot of inner child work that starts happening over this next year and a half, which can be fun and exciting. Okay, like it's not all doom and gloom here. So I'm not trying to give you that sense at all here with this horoscope. I'm just saying that yes, there's so many amazing, incredible aspects to this. The healing that we can experience within our identity, within our hearts, our soul, our alignment, and our potential is going to be so freaking advantageous. Like we are going to experience so much healing in those departments. But we're also having to get very freaking clear on what needs to change about the people in our lives, our relationships, the future of our relationships. And if you're not in a significant, committed relationship, this is just people outside of you, but also how you show up with people outside of you, what you think other people think about you, your perspective on other people's point of views, your point of view on other people, just any significant people in your life that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's clients in a business, friendships, you know, family members, etc. This all can come into play with this seventh house, you know, nodal transit as well. But also our ideologies around relationships, what we really value around relationships, what we really believe about our relationships, our actual beliefs about life, our philosophies, ideologies, religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs on life and what the hell we're doing here, our educational pursuits, our beliefs around education are all really coming up here as well, with Saturn ruling our seventh house of Aquarius, where the North Node is, being in our ninth house of Aries. So this is a time where a lot of Leo risings are going to find it a lot more easier to grow up and mature while still doing a lot of healing on that inner child, okay? Like we are being pushed outside of our comfort zones to evolve, to grow, to mature so that we can become better leaders in our lives. Like what are we leading? You know, South Node in the first house with Jupiter. We are leaders, but we have to first lead ourselves before we can go leading anything else. And so how are we showing up in relationships? How are we leading our relationships? How are we leading our lives? And then where do we also have to be connected to something bigger than ourselves so that it's not all just based on ego, so that we can be shown where we're actually meant to go in a destiny, fate, bigger cosmic kind of equation here. It's not just everything. It's not just all about us. We're not the only solar system that exists, you know? And so therefore, yes, we are ruled by the sun, which is the only object in the sky in our solar system that is actually a star. And creates its own light. So we're so used to creating things the way that we want to. But this transit is like, we need to create from the inside right now. We need to worry about recreating ourselves from the inside out. And we need to be able to flow with something bigger than ourselves and go towards something bigger than ourselves. So this is so much about us really becoming aware of where we need to lead our personal selves and our personal lives in a new way and from a new place, where we have to really reach deep within to create that light for ourselves. This really reminds me of like Lion King in that like quote of like, remember who you are, Simba. You know, like this is so Leo risings over the next year and a half. This is remembering who the fuck we are, okay? And owning that shit, embodying that shit, but not from this place of like, oh, I need to put on this show, or I need to like act like something I'm not, but like really getting deep within our hearts and really doing some healing on ourselves, our identity, and reclaiming who we are from truth, but also learning about who we are from others and really getting outside of our comfort zone when it comes to other people, relationships, clients, groups of people. This is going to be a year and a half where a lot of Leo risings are facing rejection wounds, belonging wounds, alienation wounds. Like, this is the time where we are facing that ish, okay? Like, it's time to face it. It's time to heal it. It's time to matter to ourselves and walk into a room and know that we matter, but also be self-reflective. Okay, it's really a balance. And again, the first whole half of this freaking video is your horoscope as well. So go back and watch that. I would watch it several times, honestly, if I were you. Also, this is so much about for Leo risings, like self-responsibility and accountability versus social responsibility and accountability, relational responsibility here. Like, what are you responsible for outside of yourself, your relationships with other people, the types of people you hang out with, the types of people that you're around, whether they be clients, business partners, marriage partners, friendships, family, etc., versus being responsible for yourself. And we may find that we have to shed old identities and old versions of ourselves so that we can step into more of a collaborative responsibility in our lives. I also think this is so much about, for us, like, we may feel like we lose ourselves in other people at times, or that we may lose ourselves if we focus too much on other people or connecting, networking, etc. But I think that what actually can cause us to lose ourselves during this time is our own ego. It's actually our own ego, I think, that can get in our way more than anything. With the South Node in Leo, it's really saying that. It's like, where do we self-sabotage because our own ego gets in the way? Our own lack of standing firm in who we are gets in the way, or our own ability, our own lack of self-awareness gets in the way in some way. And so these are a lot of the things that we're going to be facing over the next year and a half. So comment down below, sexy Leo rising, if you made it till here. I appreciate you guys. Send this to your peeps, and we're going to move on to the next sign. Alrighty, Pisces risings, this nodal shift story is really taking place in your 12th and 6th houses, boo. This is a time where you are going to be dealing with a lot when it comes to your job, your work, your habits, your health. Okay, the South Node in your 6th house is saying, hey, there are some things that you have to step up in. There are some things that you also have to let go of. If you are in order of your life, or if you want to get into some kind of order in your life, we're going to need to change some things. We're going to need to see where certain habits, certain schedules, certain dynamics at work, certain ways of going about things in these areas of your life is no longer working or is not authentic to you. Where is your performance or your expectations or beliefs around performance at work really coming into the forefront focus here for the next year and a half? Like, have you been burning yourself out because you've been putting so much energy into something, but it's going nowhere, or it's not progressing, or it's not going in the way that you wanted to? Or where have you been hiding or kind of lacking the ability to step up and be true to yourself, be authentic to yourself, to remain or to retain some kind of order at work, or with your habits, or with your schedules, with your day-to-day health and wellness? Like, this is a time where you are really going to be reflecting on these topics. Where does ego get in your way at work or with coworkers? Where are you kind of allowing yourself to, not speak up? Or where are you hiding certain hidden knowledge that you have in terms of your job, your work, all of this stuff? Where are you maybe not acting in accordance to your beliefs? And with Jupiter in the 6th house. Now, on the plus side, this can be so great for like healing habits, healing health and wellness issues, like really becoming more in integrity in these areas of life with work, health, and your wellness and your routines and your habits. Like, this is going to really push you to step up to the plate, to lead yourself differently when it comes to your habits, your work, your health, your wellness, your day-to-day routines, and to really take full ownership of this area of your life so that it can feel more authentic, more pure, more in alignment, more in integrity, so you can really see what you're capable of here, so you can really see what your potential is here, without allowing your ego to burn you out in some way, because maybe you have all these preconceived ideals or beliefs around like, oh, I can't do that because of this, or oh, I can't do that because of that. And that could really start unraveling here over the next year and a half, to where you start becoming more aware of where you're doing this and how it's also holding you back. Now, with the North Node in your 12th house, this is really going to demand some kind of subconscious systemic change change on a very, very, very deep level here, especially with Pluto there in your 12th as well. This would be a really excellent time. Like, so for instance, one way I could see this playing out for you as Pisces risings, let's say that you work in an environment for your job where you have to be a high achiever, you have to be a high performer, or at least you're trying to be, or you're training to be, or whatever. And you've been really performing at a certain level, but now that the nodes are in Leo and Aquarius, maybe the South Node being in Leo in your 6th house is like, hey, what I was doing before is no longer working. Or maybe you get offered a leadership position and it's a lot more responsibility, keeping everything in order, and you start to burn out or you start to self-sabotage. And then that would lead you to the North Node in Aquarius in your 12th house. Basically, how can I do some subconscious rewiring, some subconscious reprogramming, very 12th house Aquarian, like to really get to the bottom of what is going on with me so that I can heal within my day-to-day life, heal my performance issues at work, heal whatever is going on with me in terms of my work, my habits, my health, etc. And so that would be a really almost like literal way of this playing out for some Pisces risings, where it's like something's going on, or there's certain attachments or certain things that start happening that are kind of unraveling with your health, work, day-to-day routines, schedules, habits, and it really pushes you to reconsider what's going on behind the scenes with you, to really get clear on your internal world, to really get clear on what you're repressing, what you're hiding, what you've been running from, what you've been procrastinating on, what you've been pushing towards the background, what you haven't wanted to face. That's all that 12th house stuff. You may even find that like maybe you are less concerned with notoriety. Like some of you, this would be a very natural way of this playing out. Like someone that's not fighting this transit would potentially feel this in a more natural way of like maybe you become less concerned with notoriety at work or performance at work or validation at work. You become less concerned with the applause and you become more concerned with really what you know internally or who you are outside of work or outside of your public life or whatever. Like you become more embracing of the different sides of you that don't quite fit in, or you become more into discovering what's going on behind the scenes of you, or kind of letting your like hidden freak flag fly, so to say. This would be just a really great year and a half to really focus on subconscious reprogramming, honestly. Like I would really get into that. I would really get into like, okay, how can I let go of old habits, old addictions that no longer serve me? How can I really focus on what is true and authentic for me and aligned for me and in integrity for me in my day-to-day life with my work, my schedule, my habits? Like where can I really align these different areas of life? You may be really pushed to like address any alienation wounds that you have, because the 12th house historically in astrology was really affiliated with exiled and people that don't quite fit into society. So having Aquarius here on top of that with the North Node and Pluto here definitely could indicate that there may be some like deep subconscious wounds or some deep subconscious stuff that is going on with you about alienation or not quite fitting in or feeling like you don't belong. And I think that you will find a way to kind of belong in a more introverted way than more of an extroverted way. And it's really going to bring up this balance of like, okay, well, how do I still show up at work and, you know, all of the, in this like public eye, in this public way, while also really honoring this more introverted side of me that I really want to explore. And so those are the different dynamics that I could really see a lot of Pisces risings playing with. Some Pisces risings could really feel like maybe they are not quite fitting in at their job anymore. Or maybe they're not quite loving their work environment, or maybe like their health practices or their habits or whatever, their wellness routines or their, you know, whatever is not really congruent anymore. And they maybe look outside of like traditional, normal kind of health practices or regimes or whatever to find something that is a bit more different or outside the norm that really actually works for you. So you could find yourself exploring a lot of like interesting kind of unconventional forms of like health and wellness and stuff this year over the next year and a half. So really just pay attention to that. Let me know down below if you're seeing any of these themes already, since the nodes moved into these signs not that long ago. Obviously it just started, so if you're not, we still have a whole year and a half of this. And yeah, comment down below, sexy Pisces rising. Virgo Rising, darlings, welcome to your horoscope for the nodes being in Leo and Aquarius, which are your 12th and 6th house, baby. So the next year and a half is really going to be focused on health, habits, self-sabotage, work, routines, anything going on in this area of your life. These different areas of your life are going to be really big topics over the next year and a half. With the South Node in Leo, you're really going to be focused on what has been going on behind the scenes outside of your typical awareness. What have you put kind of to the side? What have you been shoving away? What have you not wanted to look at? What has been going on behind the scenes? Basically, this is that area of life. There's going to be a lot of really deep unraveling here from the past patterns, past timelines, past karmic cycles that you're really going to be unraveling over the next year and a half. So the next year and a half could feel especially karmic for you as a Virgo rising, with the South Node moving through your 12th. And with Jupiter there as well, the guru, the teacher, whatever is getting unraveled is really teaching you something, is really meant for your betterment, for your expansion, for your personal development. There's a lot of self-actualization that can happen here if you allow your ego to get out of your own way. If you can also get out of your own way, there's going to be a lot here that is shown to you where maybe, how like your subconscious or certain subconscious egoic ideals have kind of hijacked you, or hijacked your thinking about certain things, or hijacked the way that you've dealt with certain things or feel about certain things. And so there's going to be a lot of releasing that is happening over this next 1.5 years. You're going to be really, really focusing on healing, releasing any baggage from the past that has really altered how you see yourself or your state of identity, or how you see topics like confidence, ego, motivation, ambition, self-righteousness. Like, these are all of the different areas that can really come up with the South Node in the 12th in Leo. It can be a very spiritual transit, but it can also show you where you've thought you knew things that you did not quite know, or where you've subconsciously been controlled by your ego, and maybe you were wrong. Maybe it wasn't exactly how you thought it was, or maybe you weren't seeing things the way that they really were in some way, shape, or form. So there can be some humility that begins to arise here with the South Node moving through your 12th. But I think that the more that you can kind of practice not necessarily needing to know it all, or not having all the answers all of the time, and really allow yourself to go within, to really, evolve maybe some of your spiritual practices, your meditation practices. The more that you can really sit with yourself, the more that you can really do ego work, healing work, inner child work. I think that this South Node and Leo transit can really, really work for you when you are working for it in that way. Now, on the flip side, we have the North Node in Aquarius with Pluto moving through your 6th house. So this is going to be a massive push to really focus on and make a lot of very, very deep and big changes with your job, your health, your wellness, your routines, your habits. There's going to be a lot that changes in your ideologies around health, around your habits, around work, around the systems that you use on a day-to-day basis to really keep yourself in line. And so there's going to be kind of like this push out of hiding. I feel like the Leo South Node in the 12th house is like, maybe you've been hiding a lot of hidden knowledge that you have, or you've been hiding yourself in some way, or hiding how good you are at something in some way. And the North Node in Aquarius in the 6th could be really pushing you to like, hey, maybe you need to talk about this. Maybe you need to express this. Maybe you need to give. Maybe you need to be of service, as the 6th house can really be service, what you devote to. What are you devoting your time and energy to? Where are your priorities? And how do you need to make some really, really deep changes so that you can better your life in some way, evolve your life, evolve your health, progress on a day-to-day basis, make progress on a day-to-day basis. I think that, progress over perfection is going to be the name of the game here for a lot of Virgo risings. You may have all these internal ideals about how things should be, but the North Node in Aquarius is really pushing you to accept that things are not always going to be perfect. There's going to be difference. There's going to be contrast. And I think that it's more about being of service and doing what you can do. So there could be a lot of changes for Virgo risings to your jobs, your health, your habits. I think changing your habits and changing your mindset around your health, your habits, and your ideologies around your health, your habits, your lifestyle, your job, your wellness routines are going to be really, really, really big for the next year and a half. You may find yourself really starting to practice a lot of unconventional practices, veering into unconventional paths for health, work, routines, and things like that. You may, add technology or get, even add some modern takes on your health or modern practices on your health, your routines, your job in some way. I mean, could see a lot of Virgo risings like working with tech or working with, systems in some way over the next year and a half if you're not already. This is definitely going to be a time where I think it would be very great. The best way to balance this is to have some kind of really deep personal practice centered around your awareness, your consciousness, your heart, your ego, to kind of have that like humble, spiritual, egoic audit going on in the background while really devoting yourself to something bigger than yourself on a day-to-day basis, while devoting yourself and being of service to something that is somehow progressive or somehow, evolutionary on a day-to-day basis, even if it's just a small thing in your neighborhood or, being a part of a team at work or working on your own health and your habits and sharing about that with some other people. It doesn't have to be this huge, big thing, But I think that's really where your focus is going to be at and what this nodal story is really shifting for you over the next year and a half. So let me know down below, Virgo risings, how that's resonating so far. If you don't see these themes happening so far, this nodal shift just started at the time that you're seeing this video. So don't worry, it's coming. Let me know in a couple months from now. And comment sexy Virgo rising down below. Alrighty, Aries risings, the nodal axis is shifting into Aquarius and Leo, which is your 5th and 11th house. Honestly, this is a really interesting placement for this. This is really focusing on with the South Node in Leo in your 5th, your creative accomplishments, what you create and put out into the world, the true creator identity, the true creator expression, how you express yourself, how you create, whether that is you creating children or whether that is you creating art or whether that is you creating some kind of craft. Whatever it is, your hobbies, the things that really make you feel passionate, the things that really light you up in life, the things that really help you to feel artistic, creative, like you are having fun. This can also just be fun adventures, entertainment, going to shows or concerts or playing a sports game or something like that. So these are all the different areas. It's kind of like where you want to have fun and feel like a child again and all of that. And the South Node really connecting you with this energy could be you really connecting with a part of you or old parts of you that are creative, that are expressive, that are artistic, that do like to have fun, that do like to have some kind of experience. Like it could be you really reconnecting with some of these parts of you that maybe you hadn't been connected to in a long time. Like maybe you start really getting back into a hobby or a passion or an art pursuit or, something fun that you used to do that you kind of left in the past a long time ago. This could be a chance to really reconnect with those different parts of you, something that maybe you used to love, but you kind of got out of, or life got really busy and you couldn't really connect with it anymore. So this is you reconnecting with your creativity, with your passions, with love and romance and play as well. But it's also you really learning how to not only have responsibility for your own self-expression, but also how you deal with that in the world, what social responsibilities you have. With the South Node in Leo as well in your 5th, this could really focus on your children, your relationship with your children, and certain things going on with them as well. Maybe they're not feeling as seen or recognized, but this can also be you as well. Maybe you're not feeling as seen, understood, or recognized in your art or your creative pursuits or the things that you're doing for fun. Now, the shadow side of this as well can be that like maybe you're having too much fun. Maybe you are reconnecting with your inner child again, and that's all great, but maybe you take it too far. Maybe some of you end up partying too much or trying to be the life of the party or blow all your money on these like really fun pursuits, and then you're left with the North Node, which is like, hey, you have something bigger that you're responsible for here. You have certain social responsibilities, and you can't just have fun and drain all of your money on fun stuff all the time. Like there are certain things that you are responsible for, or there is a certain destiny, a certain fate that you are growing into. And so another way I could see this is like a lot of Aries risings could end up being like content creators or putting their art or something that they're creating out there a lot more over the next 18 months. And that is a lesson within itself of personal responsibility versus social responsibility. I mean, that is literally one of the biggest ways to learn this axis, honestly. Like you could be putting, whether it's content creation or not, I mean, it could be that you're writing a book and you put the book out there. It could be that you're deciding to do a craft show and, all of that. And so it's like really this back and forth push and pull between what is mine to worry about? What do I have and what do I want to keep that's precious to me that I've created versus how do I share that with others and connect with others on a bigger level? How do I bring this out to the world? How do I bring this to other people or network and connect with and collaborate with others that share similar passions, interests, hobbies, that share, the same love for something that I do? So you could find yourself connecting with like a lot of different networks, communities, niches, maybe some that are even a little bit different or a little bit unconventional in some way over the next, year and a half. I think that, you could also be really learning how to put yourself out there more, how to connect with other people more. You could be facing a lot of change in your social environments, friend groups, niches, networks that you're a part of, teams, etc. So this could be a time where you are kind of unraveling what no longer is working for you in terms of your heart space, in terms of what you can no longer hold on to or bring with you in terms of love, your heart space, your creativity, your artistry, your passions. And then also you are being kind of, you're kind of also learning how to take more social responsibility, maybe how to be a better leader, how to be a part of something bigger than yourself, how to deal with other people, how to deal with a lot of social experiences in some way, shape, or form that could be creating a lot of change for you with Pluto there in your 11th over the next year and a half. So for some Aries risings, this could be so fortunate. Like maybe something that you love, something like a passion pursuit or a creative project or something is finally taking off and you're getting a lot of social notoriety. But then that also comes with, okay, now I have some kind of responsibility towards other people, or maybe now I'm managing other people, or maybe now I'm collaborating with other people, or maybe now I have this audience that I'm worried about. And so there's a lot of lessons there. For other Aries risings, this could be like your children, maybe they're dealing with a certain level of personal validation versus group dynamics in some way, or school situations, etc. For other Aries risings, this could be that, it's about your love life and you're really starting to recognize a lot of the patterns that you have built up against your heart or your love life or whatever that are no longer working for you. And so you're really pushed to grow up here or take things more seriously or go about things in a new way. For some Aries risings, it could be all of these things that you notice going up on different times over the next 18-month period. This is a longer cycle that we're dealing with. And a lot of the times it's not just one thing that it's bringing up. It's, multiple things across all different areas of our lives. And so, this is going to affect way more than just your 5th and 11th house. That's why watching the first half is so important, because those are going to be the themes in multiple areas of our lives that, regardless of where this is happening for you in your chart. Also, with Saturn moving through your first house in your sign, Aries risings, like this is also, and it ruling your 11th house where the node will be, like this is also saying that there's a certain level of maturity and responsibility that's happening here with your identity, with you really learning how to step up and be more responsible in your life in some way, how to really, follow through on your commitments, how to be a better leader, how to step up and grow up within your identity. So there's a lot of lessons with that as well anyway. But also with the South Node moving through your 5th, another huge way that I've seen this play out is that it can sometimes decrease your passion for things that you were passionate about before. So it could be that potentially you start to kind of lose passion for things that you used to love or that you have loved up until this point, or at least it becomes less of a focus for maybe a certain period of time, maybe not the whole nodal transit, but maybe for a certain part of this nodal transit. And maybe you start being more concerned about what's going on in the world, what's going on collectively, what's going on with other people or a certain group of people. Maybe you become a bit more concerned with activism or a teamwork or collaborative efforts or certain niches that you're a part of. I remember when the nodes went through my 5th and 11th house years ago, it was kind of during the COVID days, and I became way more interested on what was going on in the world and a bit less interested in like astrology and all my passions and stuff that I had been interested in. And so this is a time where that could happen for you. It doesn't mean you'll be interested necessarily in what's going on, in the world at large. Some of you definitely could, but there definitely is like a social political thing here where you could be way more interested in social dynamics or being a part of something bigger than yourself during this time. Now, it's going to be different for different ones of you. And again, some of you may experience all of these to some extent, like for a few months, some of you may experience one side of this, and then the next few months, it could be a whole other side. So just keep that in mind. Comment down below, sexy Aries rising, if you watch till here. I appreciate you guys, and we're going to move on. Libra risings, darlings, welcome. Okay, so this nodal shift for you is happening in your 5th and 11th house, babes. So the south node is moving through Leo in your 11th with Jupiter, and the north node is moving through Aquarius in your 5th with Pluto. So what I'm really seeing for you guys as a Libra rising is the south node being in Leo in your 11th house could definitely start bringing up a lot of topics around your social life, your public life, who you are in the spotlight, who you are in the social eye, the different niches, communities, groups, teams, collaborative effort, friend groups, etc., that you belong to in the world, and where you get attention from those groups, how you fit into those groups could really, really be changing over the next 18 months. You could really start to see that there are certain things happening, or there's a series of events happening that eventually lead you to being a bit less interested in validation or in applause or recognition or being popular in a certain sphere or having attention on you all of the time or being in the spotlight. Like, you could be a bit less concerned with those things over the next 18-month period, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen easily. Like, for some of you that might happen naturally. You just may grow less and less interested or bored with all of that. For others of you, it could be a serious attachment that you have to being seen or to being around people all the time or to being popular, to have this like really dramatic or big time friend group that you're a part of, or big time social atmosphere that you're a part of all the time. And for those of you that are really attached to that are really attached to how people see you and the groups that you're a part of and the social environments that you're a part of, this could be a bit more difficult for you, and it could bring up a bit of you having to unravel from all of that in some way, shape, or form. You really facing certain truths about this that help you to kind of release a lot of social pressure or a lot of expectation or a lot of performance that you feel you need to have in this area of life with other people. And so the south node here with Jupiter here could help you kind of get more in alignment with the people in your life, more honest, more integral with the people in your life, and really look at, okay, does everything orbit around me and my friend life? Or is my life orbiting around my friends? It could be one or the other, or maybe some of both for some of you. But it's like, is this going to fall apart if I'm not here holding it up all the time? And for some of you, it could be even bigger than that. It could be maybe you have like an audience that you cater to, or that you perform for, or that you have, or that you're a part of. Or for some of you, it could be like this big group that you run, or this big, this certain niche that you have, or this certain brand that you have, whatever the case may be. It could feel like you have to always be on or always be a part of this social atmosphere to really thrive in some way, or to really feel truly like things are still moving, right? Like I said in the first half, which if you didn't watch, you definitely need to. The sun is used to keeping things in order. The sun is the one that everything else orbits around. And so that could feel like that somewhere in your social life over the next year and a half. It's like, gosh, if I like take a sec for myself, like take 5 for myself, then everything's gonna just fall apart. And like it's like if I'm not always on, if I'm not always performing, if I'm not always high vibe, or if I'm not always like a part of everything, making sure everything's working, then it's all gonna crash without me. But over the next year and a half, you could become less and less attached to needing that. And the north node in your 5th house in Aquarius could really push you to like embrace more of your human side, your more authentic self-expression, rather than this like, I need to make sure everything appears a certain way socially or for the public or whatever. Like, it could really have you like getting really, really deep into your true interests, your true hobbies, your true passions, even if they're unconventional, even if they're weird, even if they're unpopular, even if the people in your life or the crowds that you normally hang around don't really vibe with them. Like this could be like somebody that's like, has this like big brand of like, I don't know, being like a dance performer or something. And over the next 18 months, they're like, I just cannot keep posting about my dancing, or I can't keep doing all these dance performances. I'm like burnt out, but I'm really feeling like weirdly drawn to this, like, I don't know, weird nerd side of me that wants to like, collect game cards and not really have to worry about like what my audience thinks of my dancing this week, or getting views on my dancing videos, or like whatever the case may be, like, right? Like that's just like a random example, but it's like I just want to like be my weirdo self and be my human self. And so this is going to really for a lot of Libra risings, show you where you have a lot of pressure in your life coming from your public life, coming from friend groups, coming from different friend circles or different circles, social atmospheres, etc., that you're a part of. This could even for some of you be like a job, like, you know, your work environment, your job environment, the teams and the, you know, coworkers that you work with and how you fit in there, and the responsibility or the pressure of that. You know, it's going to be different for different ones of you where this is like, you know, how this is landing in your life. But either way, you may feel more of a push towards like a very authentic, different, unconventional, potentially unpopular, like, you know, passion or interest or hobby, or, you know, you may be really pushed like what your heart truly desires here, rather than trying to keep up this facade or keep up this performance of this like popularity group or this, you know, friend group or this, you know, social situation that you're in some way, shape, or form. And so it could have you, it doesn't mean you have to like give it up, but I think for some Libra risings, you may find that your passions are changing or your interests are changing or what your heart truly craves is changing. Now, also, this really brings up your love life, your, you know, sexuality, your children, dating with the North Node in the 5th house. So a lot of your ideologies around love, around dating, around sex, around children could have a drastic change over the next 1.5 years or so. You know, with Saturn in your 7th house as well, ruling the North Node in your 5th, both houses connect to the heart and relationships and dating. And so this is even more so saying that your ideologies and your plans and the way that you go about your love life and all of that is really, really changing, and you're really having to grow up in this area and look at it from a different point of view. So I think a lot of Libra risings are going to find that the next 18 months kind of demystifies what you normally would have thought would have been fun, trendy, popular, and really kind of all of a sudden you start feeling like there's something else more important, or there's something else that's a bit more serious that you want to be responsible for, or that you want to be a part of, that feels like, you know, maybe you find a relationship that's very serious and you want to have children, and instead of maybe, you know, going after this ambition that you had before that was more socially accepted, now you're like, you know what, actually, like, I don't want that. I want something more personal, or I want something that feels like it is bigger than just me, and that's this relationship, or that's having children. Now, it doesn't mean that all Libra risings are going to want to have children. For some of you, you know, it could actually be that you don't want to have children, or your ideologies change on children with, you know, the North Node and Pluto in the 5th house of Aquarius. For a lot of you, we'll be potentially dealing with topics around children, around, you know, relationship dynamics, relationship trends, like what actually feels authentic for you in a relationship, your ideologies and your beliefs around relationships. I think that a lot of you will be a bit demystified by this kind of, you know, persona that maybe you felt like you've had to play up until this point, or that you felt like you had to showcase to other people up until this point. And, you know, over the next 18 months, you'll be less and less attached to needing to have this certain identity socially. And you'll be more like looking at, okay, what's actually authentic for me, what actually feels true for me, what actually feels real for me, and where do I want to evolve in my love life, my personal life, with my personal interest, my personal creativity and passions, etc. So let me know down below, Libra, how that's landing. Comment down below, sexy Libra rising, and watch the first half if you skipped ahead, and we're going to move on. Alrighty, Taurus risings, this new nodal shift and story is taking place in your 4th house of home, family, your private life, your personal life, and your 10th house of career, your public life, your goals, your profession, your public persona, your brand, your reputation, all of that jazz. So this is a very big transit for you. It's happening in the angular houses. Anything going on in the angular houses usually shakes up our life to some extent and teaches us a lot of really important lessons. And so this is a very destined and karmic transit for you personally as a Taurus rising. So it's really important to remember that the next 18 months is a very destined and karmic story that is playing out for you. So basically, with the South Node in Leo in your 4th house, I think this is obviously going to be so much about your personal life, your private life, your life behind closed doors, your home life, your living situation, your personal family, if you have one. You know, the family that you create in this life can sometimes also deal with your parents, and basically your role, you know, with Leo here. What is your role in your home, family, and personal life? What role do you play here? Where does it feel like everything in your personal life, your private life, kind of orbits around you? or maybe even around another person? Where do you feel like you have to keep that order constantly in your personal life? The South Node here is really asking you this because it's like, okay, what needs to change? What stuff from the past? The fourth house can be very connected to the past, from your roots, your ancestry, from what has gone on. What is the baggage that you are carrying here that needs to be let go of, unraveled, released, so that you can really be more of your true self in your personal life, in your family life? Where are all of these different things orbiting that you feel responsible for holding up? And where does that role need to change? Where does your focus need to shift? Over the next 18 months, you could find through a series of different events that maybe your focus becomes less on home and family. Maybe you feel less responsible for holding up everything in home and family, or maybe for some of you, you'll feel more responsible for that, which will lead to a natural decreasing process, a natural detaching process in some way, shape, or form, where it's like there may be less of a focus eventually on your personal life, on your home life, on your family life, or even if you don't have a family, if you're a single Taurus that lives alone, this could literally be like on your private life where you are more introverted, or where you feel like you have to be this certain person behind closed doors, or hide from the world, or do your own thing in private, or whatever. There may be less of a focus on that and more of this increase or this push towards something bigger than yourself, your destiny, your life path, where you're actually going in life. If you feel like you're on the right track, it may even be that you're pushed towards something that feels like outside of what you actually would normally want. You know, Aquarius with the North Node there, with Pluto there, can really push us outside of the bounds of what normally we like, or what normally we feel comfortable with in our own ego. And so your job, your career, your profession, you know, some kind of lifelong goal or achievement, you know, that it comes up here that could push you to make a big change in these areas. Like your whole life direction could change for some Taurus risings, or your whole career could change for some Taurus risings, or, you know, even if your career doesn't change, maybe your position within it changes, maybe your role within it changes, maybe you start having to take on more career, social, professional responsibility in the public in some way, or in your external life with your career, your profession, or your long-term goals in some way. Whereas you can't just hide anymore. You can't just worry about your own personal little self-responsibility in your home, family, and private life anymore. And now there's this push to really focus on massive change in a really big way. And you may feel kind of responsible for creating that change in the world, or making that change happen in your life in some way. For some of you, this could be really big. Like this could be like you're focusing on some kind of bigger change in the world at large. For some of you, this could be with just like, you know, a certain types of people that you're trying to help change, certain, you know, within your career, within your own life, or within your local environment, or like whatever. But either way, it's like you become kind of assigned to something bigger than yourself, or fate, or something outside of you, certain circumstances, etc. The winds of fate kind of push you into maybe this new destiny, this new path, this new, you know, life path. And it feels unnerving. It feels a bit scary. It feels a bit unknown for some of you. But it's like, okay, like, yeah, you may like to be the center of your little world in your personal life, but there's other things, bigger things going on that you're also being pushed towards to play a part in, to play a role in, to collaborate in some way. And so this is really what the next 18 months are going to be about for Taurus risings. You may find that the path involves something unconventional, or the path involves you being a part of something, or collaborating, or being a part of a team, or other people in some way, you helping other people in some way. Now, it doesn't mean that like your family life will be less important to you. It just, you know, for some people it could, like, definitely. For others, it could just be that maybe you have less time for it, because again, the North Node in Aquarius, a Saturn ruled sign, could feel like you're carrying a lot more of a responsibility for your career, your professional life, what you're doing in the world, the path that you're on, or that you're kind of being redirected to for some of you in some way, if something really big changes here. I mean, Pluto is there as well. So there's definitely going to be really big changes for Taurus risings in the life direction path and the, you know, life achievement path here. A lot of you guys are going to be going through huge changes in your ideologies about what you thought you wanted for your life, or what you thought you wanted for your career, or what you thought about the world, or your life direction may be changed, you know, may really go through a massive change. Like for a lot of Taurus risings, it's like maybe you had these certain ideologies about, oh, I can't do this profession because of this, or I can't get involved in that because of that, or, I have these like really fixed ideas of like what my career is supposed to be, what my life direction is supposed to be. This is what it's always been. And that could go through a really radical change over the next 18 months. And, it could really potentially have you taking on a bit more social responsibility or professional responsibility in some way, shape, or form, career responsibility that you are having to carry the weight of. And that in itself could decrease the amount of, attention that you're able to give your personal life or your home life or your family life, over the next 18 months. Now, on the flip side, it doesn't necessarily mean that the topic of family and personal life and private life won't actually be a part of this equation, because it definitely will too. You may find that you are having to do a lot of healing on your past, or a lot of healing with family matters, or a lot of like, rising above old beliefs, old conditioned beliefs and ideologies around family and around your personal life and around your past, in order to expand and evolve into this new life direction that you're headed in, And so there's a lot of beautiful things that the South Node in your fourth house can bring as well. Like I said, it could be really digging up a lot of nostalgic memories from childhood. It could be reminding you of, unconditional love within a family unit or within, your personal life in some way. It could really, bring up the topic of creating your own family for some Taurus risings, if you haven't already, and the role that you play within your family. For some of you guys could be shedding old toxic roles that you've played in your family and, actually embracing new ones. For some of you, this could be that like, maybe you haven't felt accepted into your family or felt like you could be your authentic self in your family. And over the next 18 months, you and your family are able to move on from that. Maybe you're able to heal. Maybe you're able to be more of your authentic self. You're able to see beyond the old perspectives that you had in the past with Jupiter there. So these are some of the different ways and dynamics that you can see it playing out for you, Taurus risings. Let me know down below if you're seeing any of that already. The nodes just moved by the time that I'm filming this, though. So, it's, if you're not seeing it, don't worry. We have another 18 months where you'll definitely be seeing it. And so, yeah, comment down below, sexy Taurus rising. If you skipped the first half, definitely go back and watch that. It's going to explain so much more, because this is going to be affecting your life so much more than just your 4th and 10th houses, depending on how your chart is lined up and all the transits that we'll have over the next 18 months. So you're going to see this in so many other areas than just these areas of life. So remember that. And that's why the first half is so important. So alrighty, Scorpio risings, welcome to this massive nodal shift within our fate, our karma, and the story that is playing out for the next 18 months. This is a really, really big one for you because you're a fellow fixed sign. So this nodal shift is happening in your angular houses. So this is a really big deal. Over the next 18 months, you're going to be experiencing a lot of change that can really change the course of your life direction for many Scorpio risings. And the story that really is playing out here for you in terms of where the nodes are, transiting for you, we have the North Node in your 4th house in Aquarius with Pluto, and the South Node in Leo in your 10th house with Jupiter. So the next 18 months, with the South Node in your 10th house with Jupiter, there's going to be a lot of karmic patterns, a lot of things that are revealed, attachments that are revealed, cycles that are revealed around your profession, your performance in the world, in the spotlight, in the public eye, your career, your life path, your goals, your achievements, where you're headed, your life direction, your persona, your brand, and your reputation. So there's going to be a lot coming up in those areas of life with those topics over the next 18 months. You really may find that there is this stripping away process of anything that's not authentic to do with your professional life, your career, the spotlight, the public eye, your brand, your persona in the world / reputation, like what, authority figures as well. Anything that's not true to your heart and not authentic here is going to get brought up over the next 18 months, and you're going to have to face it. You're going to have to rise above it. You're going to have to focus on wisdom and putting your integrity, your heart, and wisdom first above your ego. You may egoically want to kind of hang on to maybe like an old brand or an old persona or an old reputation or an old way of showing up up in your career, your professional life, or old achievements or life paths that you've had. And you may feel very attached to them. Like, I don't want to give this up. This is who I've been, or this is how I wanted people to see me, or this is how, the direction I've been heading in for so long. But it may start to feel like it's no longer authentic or aligned completely in some way. Now, it doesn't mean all Scorpio risings are going to have to give up their career or their lifelong goals. Some of them will, some of you may, but it could just be that, like, hey, I have to go about this in a different way than I've been going about this. I can no longer keep thinking about this the way I've been thinking about this, or showing up in the way that I've been showing up. It's basically like with Leo, ruled by the sun, everything orbits around the sun, everything revolves around the sun. So where's everything revolved around your career? Where's everything revolved around who you are in the world, how you show up, the public eye, your long-term goals? Where's everything revolved around these ideas of yourself, or what you're supposed to accomplish, or what success is supposed to look like, or what reputation you're supposed to have, or what achievements you're supposed to gain? Like, where's everything revolved around that? And who are you really underneath of that? And so I think that is what this South Node in Leo transit through your 10th is really bringing up. Also, this is a lot about growing up and growing into more leadership in your life and with your career and your life direction. This is about maturing and finding order and leadership within yourself, even when it feels like, maybe you don't feel like the best there ever was, or you don't feel like your performance is always that great, or you don't feel like you can always be on and popping all the time. It's like, these are the times that are really going to test you over the next 18 months. How do you show up, when all of that's happening? For some of you may find that you don't want to be in the spotlight as much, that you have less interest of being validated or applauded or being seen or being in the spotlight or going after some huge goal or ambition or being successful or being seen a certain way in the world. Like, you may be less interested in that or get bored of that, and may find that there's more of a focus on the North Node in Aquarius, where you are like, what, actually, like, family is more important to me, my home life, my private life, like what's real in my life underneath this huge image that I've had for my life, or what I'm supposed to be doing in the world. Like, what's actually important to me are the people closest to me, or the people I fit in with, the people I belong with, the people that are there for me behind closed doors, and my role in that. Maybe that's what I'm actually devoted to. That's what feels bigger than myself here, is to play more of a role in my home, family, personal, and private life, and to focus on that and focus on belonging there and my role there, rather than being seen as this, like, certain type of person in my career, in my public life, or in my, goals, or in my achievements, or whatever. And so these could be some of the different stories and different patterns and different themes that you see coming up for you as a Scorpio rising. For others of you, you could be untangling your idea of what it means to be seen in the world. You could be untangling your ideas of what it means to look successful or appear a certain way, or what you have to achieve to be able to be seen in the world in some way, and you could be really focused on where you have to kind of carve out your own path in life. The North Node in the 4th house of Aquarius for Scorpio risings can also be like where you are kind of a part of, this kind of family unit, but, you also crave to kind of have your own persona, your own identity, your own things outside of that. And so there could be this like push and pull between, I want to kind of have my own path and make my own name and make my own success for myself, and, really carve out my own identity outside of just my family. And then there's this pull to like, okay, well, what needs to deeply change within my family dynamics, within my personal life, behind closed doors, within my private life, for me to do that? What is going on personally behind closed doors that I have got to let go of, or that I've got to shed, or that I've got to let die, or that I've got to change in some way with Pluto in your 4th with the North Node? And how will that help me feel more free, or help me feel more fulfilled within my career? I think a lot of Scorpio risings will find that maybe a long-term goal or a life path that you've been on, or a career that you've had, just no longer feels as fulfilling to you as it once did. And you start recognizing that's actually what is more important to you, is to be able to be yourself, to be able to be your true self in the world and behind closed doors at the same time. And that could be the interesting balance and dichotomy that you are having to deal with over the next 18-month period. So let me know, Scorpio Risings, how that's resonating with you, how that's landing with you. And if you're noticing any of these themes come up yet, I'd really love to hear your feedback down below. If you're not, know that it literally just started. So you're going to have the next 18 months of these topics coming up to reflect on them. So if you're not feeling them just yet, know that they're coming. Don't worry. And comment down below, sexy Scorpio Rising, if you watch still here. And if you missed the first half, go back and watch that. That's going to explain so much more, because this is going to affect you so much more than just your 4th house and 10th house. So just keep that in mind. Alrighty, Gemini Risings, what is up? This huge nodal shift that's happening and that's taking place over the next 18 months is going down in your 3rd house and your 9th house. And so this is the karmic and destined story that's really beginning for you over the next 18 months. The plot twist that is definitely coming in the different areas of life and the different themes and topics that will come up over the next 18 months for you. So where this is happening, the South Node is in Leo in your 3rd house. So this is really bringing up kind of a lot of what your day-to-day life orbits around, right? Like the Leo is ruled by the sun, which, everything kind of, revolves around. So what is your day-to-day environment, your day-to-day life, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis? What does all that revolve around? And a lot of that could be changing over the next 18 months. With Jupiter moving through here with the South Node, there's a lot here that's changing in terms of what your day-to-day environment looks like, what your day-to-day schedules look like, what your day-to-day routines look like, your day-to-day lifestyle, how you live your life and take care of your mind in the different places that you frequent or different environments that you're in on a day-to-day basis. That's all going to really come up over the next 18 months. So this is definitely going to be a time where it's like, what does your kind of personal life revolve around right now? And is that really working for you? Is it really burning you out? Is it kind of sucking your energy dry? Is it kind of like, you just, trying to lead your life in a certain way, but it's like, maybe it's not working as much? Like, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? But also, like, what knowledge are you consuming on a day-to-day basis? What are you learning on a day-to-day basis? Where are you traveling? The environments that you're in on a day-to-day basis. And, the South Node here could be really about you kind of unraveling old environments that just you may be attached to. And so it may not be necessarily easy. Like if you, I don't know, go to the same bar every weekend and have a certain atmosphere there, that could start to feel like no longer as interesting to you during this time. Or, you could start to really focus more on where you're putting your energy, where you're putting your awareness, where you're putting your focus, and what you're really spending your energy on could be a really big topic over the next 18 months. How are you kind of in control of your personal environment on a day-to-day basis to keep it in order, to keep it going? That's what's really shifting here. And what are you doing that's kind of leading to some kind of drain in that? It's like, what are you putting your attention on? What are you putting your focus on that actually is draining you, or that is actually no longer aligned with who you are? The South Node here can indicate that maybe you're also learning some new skills, or going back to some old skills or passions or learning pursuits from the past that could be coming back up over the next 18 months as well. Could indicate that maybe you no longer feel really great about the city you're in, or the town you're in, or the neighborhood you're in. Maybe you're no longer just feeling aligned with it in some way, or maybe you're no longer feeling great about the same friends or the same social circles or the same neighborhood, etc. And that is where the North Node in Aquarius comes in your 9th house. This is out of your comfort zone. This is out of what you're used to. This is out of your little, day-to-day life orbit of what you think and how you order things up in your day-to-day life, how you keep order in your day-to-day life. It's outside of the environments that you're comfortable in. And so the North Node in Aquarius here could be like, okay, there could be a lot of change, a lot of fated change coming in that has a lot to do with your educational pursuits, your ideologies, your belief systems on life, and potentially travel pursuits as well. So over the next 18 months, there could be a lot changing with these themes. Some of you could all of a sudden decide to go back to school, or go on some kind of learning adventure, learning pursuit that's like maybe unconventional, or that's outside of your normal comfort zone in some way. Some of you could end up being a part of some ideological group or some ideological niche, or, have a lot of different ideals about the world at large changing. Some of you could find that you become more interested in you know, social politics and what's going on either in your city or what's going on outside of your city on a bigger scale. Some of you could find that you're more pushed towards being a part of something, or, you know, to deal with learning or ideologies or travel that is bigger than yourself in some way, to serve something or be a part of something that is bigger than yourself. You could be more concerned with getting a message out, or, you know, kind of being a part of some ideological group. You know, this could be going back to school, going back to college, or traveling, you know, somewhere to understand something on a deeper level. Either way, there's like so much changing here with your day-to-day environments and getting out of your comfort zone as a Gemini rising. It's like really pushing you to understand something on a way bigger level, and to really find a way to potentially balance these things or balance these two areas for some of you as Gemini risings. Like, for instance, some of you may be very passionate about certain things going on in your local environment, in your town, in your city, in your neighborhood, or have a certain attachment to your local environment. And then at the same time, you may really feel this pull to like be a part of something bigger than that. And so maybe for some of you, it's taking those bigger topics and bringing them to your local environment. Maybe for others of you, it's moving away. Maybe for others of you, it's going back to school for something, you know, like it's going to be different for different ones of you. I think teaching and education is just going to be huge, like regardless of the North Node being in your ninth, like Jupiter is going to be in your third. And so this could be like you really honing in on certain skills or talents that you have and really using them for something bigger than yourself, or to serve some kind of bigger agenda, or to be a part of some kind of movement, with Saturn in your 11th as well, ruling your ninth house. This is like, I think some of you guys could have like certain passions, certain skills that you're trying to put out there into the world, but maybe you're trying to find the right people, or you're trying to find the right groups. Maybe you're, you know, or for some of you, you're taking on more social responsibility with your beliefs, with education, with putting your ideas and your ideologies out there in some way as well. That could be it as well. But either way, it's like you're trying to find where your ideologies belong, or where you belong, maybe in terms of location for some of you. But there's just this push towards radical change in your beliefs, your identities, or not identities, your ideologies, and, you know, social change maybe on a bigger scale here for Gemini risings, you know, and whether it's on some huge scale or not, for some of you, it could just be in your city and town. For some of you, it could be the school that you're attending. For some of you, it could be online in a certain niche or community or whatever. For some of you, it could be, I don't know, maybe in your career or in your job or something. But you're having to get outside of your comfort zone and really contemplate on like what you truly believe and where you truly fit in within those beliefs. I think that's going to be the bigger story happening here over the next 18 months. Comment sexy Gemini rising down below. If you watched till here, thank you. And if you skipped ahead, definitely make sure to go back and watch the first half. Alrighty, Sag risings, this huge nodal story is shifting for you in terms of your third house and your ninth house. So the South Node is going to be in Leo in your ninth house. Let's start there. I think that there's going to be potentially a lot going on with your higher ideologies, your higher beliefs, basically the religions that you believe in, or the bigger philosophy that you have on life, your educational beliefs, what you believe in terms of education, or the different educational pursuits or achievements that you've had over the years, and the ideology that you've adapted or attached to from those, what you believe about the world politically, like all of these higher kind of beliefs that you believe about life and your philosophies here are going through a lot of change over the next 18 months. And you may see where maybe potentially a lot of your identity has actually revolved around these higher beliefs, these higher ideologies that you've had in these different areas or these different topics. And I think that the South Node here is really saying that, hey, there needs to be some unraveling. There needs to be some detaching. Where have you maybe allowed certain ideologies to like run your life in a certain way, or to like where you've identified with them in a certain way, and who are you without them? You know, with Jupiter moving through your ninth as well, it's like you could really start to feel a bit detached from maybe a certain religion that you followed, or an old ideology that you've had, or an old philosophy that you've had forever now. And you could start to feel like, I don't know if I believe these things any longer. I don't know if I feel a part of this any longer. And it could feel like you start to become less interested in really like mainstream, maybe religions or political views or ideologies or philosophies or educational paths that feel like they no longer serve you, or feel like your life has to orbit around them for them to exist in some way. And so here with Jupiter here as well, like you could kind of be becoming your own, like really kind of figuring out like what you believe, but also learning how to kind of authentically, believe in what you believe, like learning how to find your own authentic truth when it comes to spirituality, religion, politics, etc. That could be really huge. It could kind of be dissecting like a lot of the different big beliefs or mainstream beliefs that you've had over the years, or where you've kind of attached to certain popular beliefs or theories that just no longer work for you in some way, or that you no longer find as validating as you once did. I think that with Jupiter here as well, if you are somebody that teaches or is in education in some way, or if you are on an educational pursuit yourself, if you're in school or something, this could also really bring up ideologies around that and your ideals around that and how you feel about that, and really looking at yourself as either a student or a teacher and what all comes along with that, where you maybe have to embody more of what you preach, or really ask yourself if it's something that you still want to embody, if it's something that you still believe. This could be really, really interesting for you if like you're already in an educational field, or you're a teacher, or you're a mentor in some way, or a coach, or somebody that basically passes on knowledge in any way. You could be really kind of pushed to kind of take like a spiritual audit of your ego and where that's coming into your teachings, where that's coming into you passing knowledge down, where that is, potentially holding you back from awakening even farther, or, awakening to kind of in the next level of your teachings, of your beliefs, of your ideologies, of your ideas on life. Now, with the North Node in Aquarius in your third house with Pluto, you are being really pushed to kind of adapt more to a normal way of thinking in your day-to-day environment, in your day-to-day life. So I feel like this is kind of really pushing you towards embracing your own kind of alternative practices, your alternative beliefs that maybe don't fit into the mainstream, or to share more opinions or ideas that you have that aren't always part of some popular, belief system that everybody else is orbiting around. Like this is really to kind of find your own path. It's like you're kind of finding your own path. You're kind of finding an alternative path to what you think, what you believe, what you feel. And at first that can feel a bit scary, like anytime that like our beliefs are something that we usually identify with, and that really create almost this background scene, or this like, background music for our life in a certain way. Like, we really look at life through the filter of what we believe. And and our beliefs play such an important role in our perception of what happens to us in life and what we go through in life. And so this can be a bit challenging at first for some of you, maybe not all of you, but some of you may have a challenging time with this at first. It could feel like, I don't even know what I believe anymore. I don't know where I fall in terms of this. And that could feel a bit weird because now you're moving through life without that belief filter that maybe you once had. And so the North Node in Aquarius is like, well, what alternative beliefs do you have? How can you get into some maybe alternative practices that work for you, even if they're a little different? Or maybe you're taking bits and pieces from different belief systems and different places, and just kind of creating your own thing with them and experimenting. I think experimentation is such a huge key here with this nodal axis. So I think that a lot of things are changing for you as a Sag rising, also in terms of your day-to-day environment, your day-to-day lifestyle, where you put your energy on a day-to-day basis, the people you're around, the environments you're around. You could be making a lot of big changes. For some of you, maybe you've been kind of like in your own little world with your belief systems, and the North Node in Aquarius in your third, maybe like having you get more collaborative in your actual local environment, in your community, finding other people that are more like you, or finding other places that you feel you belong to in your own, day-to-day life, kind of learning how to really bring things down to earth in a lot of ways, and, kind of fit into a normal day-to-day environment, but add your own kind of unique practices and alternative practices to that, I think is really kind of the name of the game here. So you may find that over the next 18 months at some point, you kind of become less interested in big trendy ideologies, or big trendy philosophies, or big trendy religions, or mainstream ways of thinking or being seen, or mainstream ways of education. And you kind of come back down to earth a little bit more, and you really experiment with your own ideas. You really experiment with kind of your own understanding, your own experience, your own life lessons, and all of that. And it's kind of like combining all of this to find a balance between you not needing to kind of, follow something that takes so much of your energy or that everything in your life orbits around, and you finding something to serve or a certain message that feels more authentic to you. And so that's really how I see this playing out for you. If you're a Sag rising, a lot of you guys could be potentially moving or changing locations in some way, or traveling, or if you've been traveling for a while, you could finally feel like you want to kind of settle down. If you have been in some really big education, getting some really big education over a certain period of time, this could also be you having to integrate everything that you've learned on a day-to-day basis, something like that. So let me know down below, Sag risings, if this is resonating with you. If it's not yet, give it a bit. We're going to have this for the next 18 months. It just started, so don't worry, it's coming. Comment sexy Sag rising down below if you watched till here. I appreciate you. If you missed the first half, go back and watch it. It tells you so much more that you don't want to miss. Alrighty, Cancer risings in the his house. Let's go. The South Node is in Leo now in your second house. So this is really going to be a lot of unraveling, integrating, shedding, releasing, and letting go of where you attach your identity to money, to wealth, to resources, to your assets, to the different things that you own or that you possess or that you have. There's going to be a lot of self-reflection here when it comes to your values, your priorities, your assets, the things that you possess, your possessions, whether that be money or something else. There's going to be a lot of self-reflection here over the next 18-month period where you attach your sense of worthiness or your sense of identity or your sense of self to these things, where you've become too attached to these things or too attached to needing yourself to appear a certain way by having certain things in your life. And so over the next 18 months, you may really be reflecting on how you do this in your life in some way. You may also be learning a lot of new skills from a lot of different people regarding finances, regarding wealth, regarding power, regarding transactional relationships with other people or financial relationships with other people, with the North Node in Aquarius in your 8th house. So the next 18 months is all about money, honey. You are really going to be unraveling and releasing what no longer serves you in terms of how you go about your possessions, how you go about ownership, how you go about finances, while also feeling called to something bigger than yourself or to be a part of something bigger than yourself when it comes to your wealth, your finances, and your success in life in terms of finances. And so with the North Node in Aquarius, with Pluto in the 8th house, this could be uncovering a lot of deep subconscious fears around money, around scarcity, around survival mode, and really working through a lot of those too over the next 18 months. There could just be a lot that you are uncovering about attachments and beliefs and ideologies around finances. This could be really changing your whole ideological perspective and really releasing you from a lot of old, maybe childish or outdated beliefs around money. Maybe you find yourself hanging out with a lot of more wealthy people over the next 18 months, and that completely cracks open your beliefs and your ideologies of how maybe you thought about wealthy people before, or maybe you start taking courses or classes with certain people that help you understand, financial literacy on a deeper level, or in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you start, going to a job, or you have a job that deals with finances or tech or insurance or, any of those 8th house kind of themes here. And so this is going to be a huge focus for the next 18 months. Now, relationships with other people are going to be huge with this, with Aquarius in your 8th house, but also with Aquarius being ruled by Saturn and Saturn ruling your 7th house too. Your financial relationships are going to be a huge deal and are going to change drastically over the next year and a half. Now, with Saturn moving through your 10th house of Aries, this is really bringing in your life path, your life direction, your career, your long-term goals, your long-term ambitions in the mix. You may be feeling very competitive and impulsive, but Saturn here is really teaching you that there's a way to do things, that you can't be impulsive about everything, that sometimes slow, consistent action is better than one big bang. And so Saturn in the 10th house can be teaching you a lot of maturity, responsibility, and growing up within your career, your life path, your long-term goals. It can slow some things down for some of you. It just depends. For some of you, it could feel like it's just taking longer to get to a certain point, or it's taking longer than you had hoped to do certain things within your life, within your career. For others of you, you could be practicing a lot of growing up and maturing in your life, and that could actually be maybe helping things move faster. But it really is a lot of you taking on more responsibility and leadership potentially for some of you in your life so that you can feel more free financially. And I think it is kind of pushing you to reorder what you've thought or believed or have done for yourself financially up until this point so that you can learn more or find something that feels, bigger than yourself, or that feels like you're working towards something bigger than yourself, and let go of outdated identity issues around money, or identity attachments around money, or egoic attachments around money. I think that that's going to be a huge, huge lesson here for you with this nodal axis shift. So let me know down below, Cancer Rising, how that is relating with you guys. I'd really love to hear your feedback. Comment down below, Sexy Cancer Rising. If you watched till here, if you missed the first half, go back and watch that. It's going to explain so much more, and we're going to move on. Capricorn Risings, for you, this nodal shift is happening in your 2nd and 8th house as well, just like Cancer, the sign before you, but it's flipped. So the north node is in Aquarius in your 2nd, and the south node is in Leo in your 8th. So what this could likely mean for you is actually very similar to Cancer in some ways. This could really be bringing up any attachments or ideals and ideologies that you have around your finances, your possessions, your assets, and the things that you own in this life, and how you identify with those things or use those things to feed into your identity. Why is it similar like that for you? Well, because Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius, and Saturn is the ruler of your chart, your 1st house. And so not only is it bringing in these 2nd house Aquarian topics, but it's also going to be a lot about you and your rising sign as well, your 1st house as well, and really adding that into the mix. Now with the south node in Leo with Jupiter, this could be a lot of detachment, decreasing, integration, releasing of financial obligations that involve you being the leader, or them needing to orbit, certain things needing to orbit around you or around someone else or something certain. Any financial dependencies that you have with other people could really come up and decrease, or you could detach from over the next 18 months. A lot of your financial relationships are going to be coming into the picture for you to revise, for you to potentially let go of, for you to dissolve potentially in some way. With Leo in the 8th house and the south node there, this makes me think of like your ideas around success and wealth and power, and how to display those things and how those things are displayed. Your ideas around all of that may be changing over the next 18 months. Like maybe you thought having this showy wealth and showing off your wealth or finances or possessions, maybe you thought at once that was cool. Over the next 18 months, you could actually be no longer feeling really lit up about that anymore. It could no longer really be of interest to you to be super flashy with your successes or your possessions or, your financial situations or relationships, etc. Now, obviously, that's not the case for all of you. I'm just saying that's one way this could play out. But it's really going to have you re-advising your financial relationships, really doing some inner self, some deep self-reflection on what you need to let go of when it comes to what you share or get or provide with other people or for other people. So therefore, if you depend on certain, government funding for something, if you depend on the stock market, if you depend on, a business partner, if you depend on whatever the case may be, a significant other, some of those financial relationships where there's shared money involved could really be coming in, or if it's insurance, insurance related topics and situations could be coming in here as well. Whatever feels like if it feels like there's too much centered around, like too much of your financial life if it feels like it's too centered around another person or an entity or some mainstream, institutions or like whatever, you may start detaching from that basically over the next 18 months. You may have to learn kind of how to lead your life and lead your financial direction in a different way. Now, it doesn't mean every single financial relationship you have is coming to an end or anything like that, but you may be reflecting on what does need to change in terms of your financial, relationships and your transactional situations, and, where you gain money from, your ideals and beliefs around wealth and power and what that looks like. It could feel like maybe a financial investment that you had maybe isn't growing in the same way as it used to, or maybe it is, but maybe your morals change, maybe your beliefs change, maybe your ideologies change. For some of you, this could be, using investment strategies or, different financial avenues to gain more for yourself, because maybe you are working towards something that you want to own or possess or have more control over when it comes to your family. Maybe you want to, disperse your financial gains for your family in some way, with the North Node in Aquarius in your second and Saturn in your fourth house of home, family, and personal life. Maybe you are wanting to, create something for your family, or do something with real estate, or do something with your personal life that feels like something bigger than yourself, instead of just for you. The eighth house is like, I want to gain all this money to be successful, or so I can show it off, or just for myself. Whereas your Aquarius second house is like, actually, I have bigger goals than this, or there's, I don't want it to just be all about me. I want it to be about something that, I can give back to, or that I can be a part of, be collaborative with in some way. And so this financial story and these financial topics are really coming up for you over the next 18-month period, where you are going to be really rethinking what you truly believe about success, power, and wealth, and how you achieve those things in your life. Your ideologies around money and your attachments could change. For some of you, I could really see you, like, maybe you lived this super flashy life before, or this super, big, dramatic financial life before, and now you maybe are thinking about simplifying things, or kind of going outside of like conventional methods and doing something different. Maybe you're thinking about like, what, I don't need all this stuff. I'm going to sell it and I'm going to go live off grid with my family and those I love, or, something like that. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly that, but the story could be the same, or there could be similar themes here. It could be like, what, I'm less interested in, having wealth just for the sake of it, or to leave some kind of legend behind, or to make my mark on something. And I'm more interested in, the things that I actually have, the things that I actually can control, the things that are more important to me, more of a priority to me. Like, your priorities and what you depend upon in your life is going to come up really big, in a really big way over the next 18-month cycle. So really be paying attention to these things for the next 18 months, Capricorn Rising. I mean, I'm sure you're going to see them either way. They're definitely coming if they're not here already. Comment down below and let me know how you're feeling this nodal shift so far. And comment down below, sexy Capricorn Rising. If you watched till here, I appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I think this is my last time, so we should be done, and I will see you guys in the next one.